From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Go Patriots.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch. Supervisor Perez.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to ask County Counsel Mark Nations to give us a report on any actions taken in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Items 27, 28, and 29 from the morning agenda work closed sessions. They were held, and we do not have any reportable action coming out of any of those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we will begin with the consent agenda for the Tuesday, February 7, 2017 meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors PM agenda. If you'd like to follow along with our agendas, they are available in the back at the two tables. And so starting on page 2, items 4 and 5 are on consent. On page 3, items 6, as well as 8, 9, and 10. Page 4, all items 12 through 20 are on consent. On page 5, item 21, as well as 23, 24, and 25. And finally, on page 6, all items 26 through 30 are on consent. Are there any members of the public that would like to make comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? Come forward, please.
David Fluhart, Havilah, 1st District. I wanted to call up or talk about number 20, the drought emergency, the continuation of the local emergency due to drought conditions. It's been raining a lot. Rain, even in a La Nina year. And God works in mysterious ways, and where rain is a blessing, I'm sure that we're doing correct things here and going in the right direction. But it's been years of drought, which means years of damage, and of course we'll need to continue that local drought emergency to make sure we get whole after years of drought. But I just wanted to say it's nice to have rain, and in God we trust. Thank you very much.
Indeed it is. Thank you, Mr. Fluhart. Any other members of the public would like to make comments on any of the consent items? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board and ask if there are any members of the board that would like to pull an item, or if I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, that brings us back to page 2 on our agenda. Item number 1 under resolutions, proclamations. This is a resolution honoring Gabriele Kidwell, Public Works Department, upon her retirement with 33 years of dedicated service to the County of Kern. And Supervisor Perez will make this presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Motion on proclamation.
Second.
Okay, you have a motion and second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Well, hello there. Congratulations. Thank you. Congrats. Bad for us, good for you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. It really is a privilege to present today to Ms. Kidwell. She has, as you know, been an integral part of solid waste operations for over 26 years. She has seen the industry transform from dumps to highly regulated waste management facilities. From landfill inspector to site engineer, Gabriele came up through the ranks and is known to run a tight ship. The train's on time. Gabriele runs her sites with spirit, integrity, and a salty sense of humor. It has endeared her to contractors, regulators, peers, customers, and even politicians. She has a strong environmental conscientiousness, the genuine love of nature and the environment. Whether hiking, snowshoeing, or camping in the mountains, working to support the local fire safe council, or organizing social bike rides, Gabriele will have an active and productive retirement. And might I add, way too young to retire. My goodness. I'll take some lessons from you. So it is an honor, Mr. Chairman, to proclaim and give this resolution, present this resolution to the public, to Ms. Gabriele Kidwell and her family, and of course, the department head who will be losing her, but I see has a great fondness. Whereas Gabriele D. Kidwell began her career with Kern County at the Public Works Department in 1984 as an engineer aide, and worked her way up the ranks to become an engineer technician performing landfill operation inspections of the newly formed Waste Management Department in 1992, maintaining this role until she obtained her land surveyor in training in 2004 and was promoted to an engineer 2 that same year. In 2006, she was promoted to an engineer 3, the position she has held until retirement. And during her tenure with the Public Works Department, Ms. Kidwell was an engineer aide and drafting technician in various divisions, providing surveying services and landfill studies for numerous projects, including the Meadowsfield Runway extension and various road projects. And Ms. Kidwell played an integral role in the newly formed Waste Management Department by providing landfill inspections during the closure of the China Grade landfill and the development and opening of the Metropolitan Bakersfield Sanitary Landfill at Bena, in addition to managing problematic landfills which needed to come into compliance with new solid waste regulations. And Ms. Kidwell taught herself AutoCAD, a computer design and drafting software which allowed the Waste Management Department to develop fill sequencing plans, draft lift plans, and prepare landfill capacity studies necessary for the efficient operations of solid waste facilities and ensure compliance with state regulations. You've been busy. Yes. Ms. Kidwell was responsible for the operations of 3 facilities, 2 landfills, and a transfer station for a 10-year span without receiving a single operational violation from the regulatory agencies. Extraordinary. An accomplishment unmatched by any other disposal site engineer. Extraordinary. And Ms. Kidwell's dedication to providing safe, efficient, and environmentally compliant solid waste facilities and commitment to serving the public has earned her deep respect and admiration of both peers, colleagues, and outside contractors. Her many contributions to Kern County will be greatly missed, and she is wished the best in her future endeavors. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Kern, State of California, does hereby honor and commend Gabriele Kidwell upon her retirement with 33 years of exemplary and dedicated service to the great County of Kern. Thank you for your service. Thank you for setting the utmost highest standards. You will be missed, and we hope to see you around everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats. Please.
May I?
This is just awesome and the icing of the cake, but I would like to plug that the happiest and proudest person today would be my mother. When she's 90, and I told her about that I will be at the board, and she couldn't believe it, that her little immigrant daughter from Germany made it this far, and she's just so happy. So am I. It's been a wonderful ride. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to confirm everything that Supervisor Perez has said and add that it's Gabriele's work ethic and her judgment that set her apart. She has been simply an exemplary public servant, and we will truly miss her. And today is actually perfect because she has a lot of her community friends that are also in the audience for the Hart Park issue. And so
What?
she gets
What
both
park?
Hart Park issue.
Never heard of it.
And so between work friends and the community, she has a great turnout.
Outstanding.
So,
Very good. Well done. Thank you. Thank you.
Did you, I think there's someone.
I'm sorry, did somebody want to take a picture? Yes. Okay, come on up. Yeah. Well, Supervisor Gleason spotted it. We'll give him credit. Thank you all so much, and best wishes. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 2, public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a public statement? Please come forward, and we ask that you observe our 2-minute time limit.
David Fluhart, Havilah, First District. I remember, I don't know, it was 5 months ago, September, I had talked Goofy about football season starting and how great our football teams are here in Kern County. And then I mentioned in high school the 12th grade government classes, that they were going to have a wonderful semester looking at the election. And I had mentioned the teachable moment. And well, 4 months later, here we are at the amazing teachable moment. We have the Patriots come from behind win. That was, I'd heard this morning, it was like beginning in the fourth quarter, it was like a 99.6% chance that they'd lose. So that's a miracle win there. And Trump, he ended up winning. He was a long shot. He ended up winning. So hopefully that works out good. And back in September, I would probably imagine nobody would have bet on all this rain coming. So I guess it's the teachable moment, and God works in mysterious ways. Once again, God we trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fluhart. Would anyone else like to make a public statement? Okay, I don't see any. Then we'll move on to board member announcements or reports. No reports. Okay, very good. Then we'll move on to item number 7 on our agenda, and this is an item under the Planning and Natural Resources Department. This is an update on progress and schedule for Kern County Marijuana Land Use Ordinance Project. And Laurel Ioviat, our Director of the Planning and Natural Resources Department, will start us off with this discussion. Good afternoon, Ms. Oviat.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, members of the board. If I could have the overhead, I am providing a schedule today as well so that the public can understand when they can make comments on this. Although Proposition 64 did pass, making the cultivation, sale, and use of marijuana for recreational purposes legal in California, no activities for recreational marijuana are legal without a permit from the state and clearance from local government. The state will not begin issuing permits for that until January 1st, 2018. And this provides a short window of opportunity for public discussion and studies for your board to consider determining policy direction and the proper regulatory framework for the county. As noted in past presentations, a moratorium is still in place for all new dispensaries or other activities to allow time for the study to be completed. As directed by the courts, the zoning ordinance will be considered and analyzed in a full environmental impact report. We have already released the first step in that process. A notice of preparation was released on January 23rd. For a 30-day comment period, which ends February 24th, your board did receive copies of the document. It was mailed to all the cities, the state, the local agencies, and all members of the public who expressed interest in this subject. It can be found online at our website. And we are having a scoping meeting on Friday at the Public Services Building at 1:30. This is a conversation about what impacts to analyze in the environmental impact report. Certainly if people have comments about how they think we should or shouldn't regulate this new industry, that is a meeting that they can bring their comments. The proposed project description looks at 2 options. Option 1, or option A, is to ban all marijuana activities and facilities for either medical and/or recreational use in the unincorporated Kern County. However, under the new laws of Proposition 64, private cultivation and use would be limited to 6 plants, and you would have no ability to not allow that cultivation. If we had a ban, the 12-plant allowance would be removed, and mobile delivery from outside the county could also not be banned. You could ban dispensaries, you could ban cultivation, greenhouses. However, you cannot ban the transportation of marijuana through the county, and you could not ban mobile delivery from outside the county into the county. The second option is to regulate the marijuana activities. We have provided, the planning department has provided a proposed framework for this in the notice of preparation. We have identified appropriate zone classifications, and we are looking at commercial marijuana cultivation indoors, meaning inside greenhouses, or inside warehouses and other sorts of large uses, processing and packaging and distribution facilities, and we are making a recommendation for public comment and input in the notice of preparation and in the workshops on this concept. In addition, we have looked at dispensaries for either medical or recreational retail sales and mobile deliveries. However, we are proposing that they be in specific zone districts and require a conditional use permit. So, dispensaries would be limited countywide. They would all require a conditional use permit. We are recommending that there be issues of overconcentration be addressed, and we are recommending only 20 dispensaries countywide, not recommending, but suggesting at this point, 20 dispensaries countywide with only one in each unincorporated community. And we are working through boundary maps because unincorporated communities actually are defined. We actually have a map for Lost Hills. We have a map for Buttonwillow. We have a map for Kern. And we have used those in our housing element in our general plan. So we are looking at a framework that will go through public comment, go through the Planning Commission, go to your board for a series of workshops before you have to make a decision. So when we circulate the environmental impact report in May, June, I will be scheduling a workshop for your board to bring forward your questions and comments at that time, since we are in a very limited time frame here in order to use this window of opportunity. We are proposing a maximum total square footage for all of these types of things. So there would be a maximum square footage for greenhouse cultivation. There would be a maximum square footage for processing, as well as for outdoor cultivation. Outdoor cultivation by the state's limits can only receive a permit for 1 acre. Therefore, we are only proposing 150 acres of outdoor cultivation. There are a lot of challenges with outdoor cultivation, and we believe that that is not the most appropriate. If you are to regulate this, that may not be the most appropriate type of cultivation to allow, but we have allowed 150. The reason that we have to propose these numbers is because of the environmental impact report. This is a program environmental impact report. However, our proposal, if your board decides not to ban but to regulate, is that cultivation in greenhouses and processing would be covered by this environmental impact report, and there would be a series of development standards that they would have to comply with. Distances from schools, distances from cities, distances from different uses, as well as a list of requirements. Once again, the dispensaries, on the other hand, we are recommending a conditional use permit. They would have to do more CEQA and more siting analysis. The last component that I'd like to share with your board, which we believe is one of the most important components, is a fiscal impact study. It is not required under the Environmental Quality Act. However, we do believe that for your board and the CAO and county departments to give you recommendations to make the most informed decision, we need a full fiscal impact study. We have retained Nadelson Company. They have done a series of well-respected reports on a variety of different fiscal issues. And so there's a series of breakdowns. One is the potential fiscal impacts on county services for public health, law enforcement, fire, social services. So all of the traditional impacts. The second part is how much revenue would this new industry provide to the county, special districts, and schools? Number of proposed sizes and types of activities proposed if you did not ban it. There are special revenue sources such as a sales tax and other revenue taxes that have been established by Proposition 64 that we will fully analyze in this report. In addition, we would be looking at what are the potential cost recovery for fees and charges for staff and enforcement charges that might have to be imposed. And lastly, there will be a complete analysis of what are other counties doing for voter-approved taxes, what is the potential revenue from that, and we would have scenarios and projections be included in the report. That report will be released with the environmental impact report in May. As all environmental impact reports are sent to your board, this one will also be sent to your board as well as the CAO and County Council. And of course, posted online and provided to any members of the public who express interest. The state, so these are on the overhead, the opportunities for public comment. And we are anticipating, besides this board workshop in June, we would be at the Planning Commission in August, and we are anticipating at least 2 meetings before your board in making a determination of what your policy direction is, right now scheduled for September, October. Once again, we, in consultation with County Council, we would like to have an ordinance in place before January 1st, 2018. Ordinances take 60 days to, zoning ordinance, Mr. Hall, 60 days to be effective? 30 days. 30 days to be effective. If we don't choose something, then all the licensing will be at the state, and we will have no control over where these cultivation or any of these other industries, any of these marijuana-related activities. Lastly, we have been in communication with the Bureau of Marijuana Control at the state of California. I am attending a number of meetings where they're going to be talking about their new regulations. They are staffing up, but the regulations for their state licensing that are in that are in the legislation still need more implementation. However, the legislation already says if the local government doesn't allow the use, there will be no state license. So the ultimate control is yours. We have reached out to the cities. Some cities are interested in using the information in the EIRs. Other cities have taken a position that they are simply not going to have these types of activities. Wasco, Shafter have taken that position. I would note that there are 90 dispensaries in the city of Bakersfield. Therefore, we are taking into account when we are making suggestions and recommendations on dispensaries, the fact that there may already be enough for public access, and we need to, we do believe that many of the impacts we'll know from this environmental impact are really more related to dispensaries than they are to these other types of activities. And then I know that other counties have taken slightly different positions. For example, Tulare County is decided to wait for 2 years to see what happens. The information that we are receiving from Sacramento and the Marijuana Control Bureau is that there will be limited licenses. And given the many cities that have already kind of leaped into this and are looking for many, many licenses, we firmly believe that if you wish to regulate it and you wish to recoup revenue, you need to make a decision now. In 2 years, there will be no licenses available, according to the most recent information. They will all be given out. And we have some cities who, think they're going to get 100 licenses. The state has indicated that they're going to try and make this equitable. But the team, which includes County Council and the Planning Department and the CAO's office, would like to provide to your board is a full picture of the opportunities and the downsides of this. We are also collaborating with the DA, the Public Defender, the Ag Commissioner, all of the people, as well as people in the private sector and businesses. So that completes my update. We look forward to releasing the EIR in May along with this fiscal report, which will be the fiscal report will be an iterative process. We will release it, but as we get more information or as the information becomes refined, we do have preliminary numbers in the notice of preparation, and we are already receiving input that we need to we need to increase the maximum on greenhouse cultivation and processing. So you will see some changes to those numbers between the notice of preparation and the EIR. That completes my presentation. I don't know if County Council has any additional thoughts, or Mr. Alsop.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. I'll ask, no, nothing from council? Very good. Any comments from members of the board? Supervisor Maggard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask a couple questions. Thank you for your explanation of all that. Previous actions by this board have been criticized for not taking into account certain elements within the EIR. Economic consequence, you addressed it already, air quality, things like that. So are we assured that our study will be broad enough that it will encompass those kinds of concerns, even if we aren't required to do it, we're doing it out of a matter of prudence so that whatever decision we make will stand up?
Supervisor Maggard, that is correct. We will do a full EIR that looks at transportation, traffic, air quality impacts, all of the types of issues that we normally look at under CEQA. And then in our staff reports, we will be bringing forward any other issues that are not necessarily covered by CEQA, such as impaired driving.
Thank you. In the absence of regulation, those, I don't know what the right word is, under the radar, those off the books, those unregulated dispensaries that are currently operating, very often don't follow any consistent rules or best practices. It's just a complete, cat pile of different strategies that they have in place. So are we able to regulate how they will operate the business as well as the land use? For example, whether or not the usage of marijuana inside the facility seeps up through the T-bar ceiling and comes down in the adjacent facility, just the smell of the product, even if it hasn't been lit, permeates many buildings. How will we deal with those kind of things?
Supervisor Maggard, we will be able to regulate all that if that is your choice. In addition, we are reaching out through our consultant and through others to Washington State, Colorado, and Oregon to look at their best practices. The odor is a significant issue when it comes to greenhouses, and these greenhouses will, if that is the direction the board takes, the recommendations we would make is that these greenhouses be sophisticated operations. Some of the ventilation systems are upwards to $1.2 million on even a small greenhouse. Those are important issues. This is not an industry that we have actually engaged with, so we are doing everything possible because we are treating this like any of the other industries that have come before your board. We want the highest standards and the highest quality, and we want those dispensaries as well to have the same kinds of regulations that you would have on a dry cleaner so that you don't have chemicals affecting other people. In addition, if we do decide to regulate and we limit the number of dispensaries, we will be consulting with County Council to bring forward a proposal on amortizing out dispensaries that are over that limit who may not qualify for a state license.
Next question has to do with the outside appearance of the facility, signage, window coverings. Some of these are rather garish in the way that they have tried to advertise their activities. Will that also be subject to regulation?
Supervisor Maggard, recent Supreme Court decisions mean that we have to be careful about content, but we can always regulate the size of signs. We can regulate, they can't have flashing lights. They can't put things out on the, front. And so we would be writing those types of regulations. I believe that the difference will be is that we will have the state behind us. In other words, up until now, the only enforcement has been at our level with our judges. If they have a state license, the state has been given some huge sum of money, $200 million out of the state budget in order to hire enforcement and people to enforce all of this. And so we believe that that is going to also create a different level of implementation because we can go to them, have the state pull their state license and use their power to bring people into alignment. These are, however, serious issues that I am taking into account when it comes to specifically dispensaries in regards to their past operations and what we want to see in the future, if at all.
Thank you for that. Just two more questions. The issue of marijuana doctors, many people in the public, most of which never go into these places, don't perceive the difference between a doctor who is setting up to give out prescriptions, so to speak, for marijuana and actual dispensaries. So can you describe quickly for the public what we can and cannot regulate about those doctors?
Supervisor Maggart, we actually can't regulate anything about that, but there is new legislation that will be regulating them at the state level, and I will bring you more details on that. In addition, please note that although dispensaries for medical marijuana have slightly less licensing standards, they aren't completely significant, and recreational marijuana will not require a doctor's prescription. Therefore, the Sacramento believes that that industry will be on the decline because of the voter passage of this.
Thank you. Last question. Is it not correct that we own the fairgrounds? Isn't the fairgrounds on county property? Our tenant, the state, what is the tenant's? I'm going to speak for Mr. Nations because he didn't have his microphone on. The 15th Agricultural District operates the fair on our fairgrounds. I don't know if it happened last weekend or if it's going to happen next weekend. I thought it was next weekend, and somebody told me it already happened. But they're having their first marijuana fair at the fair, and it's a big opportunity to sell wares that are related to marijuana. I'm interested in our ability to exercise our interests, our position on what happens on that fairground, since it's our property, and where are the lines, and to what extent might we be able to influence that on our own property. Thank you very much. Appreciate your information.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I have one. I mean, there's a lot of questions about what we're going to be studying and how the things will be regulated, et cetera, but I'm going to wait until probably wait until the public release in May to see what's already in it. But I do have a question that I think is kind of more on the front end. How are we paying around $300,000 to do this EIR? How much is it?
We are, Supervisor Scrivener, through the General Plan Surcharge Fund.
Okay, I'd like to the extent that we can, explore how we can have some cross-jurisdictional consistency with the other cities that are in the county, particularly the metro area, Bakersfield, but I know there are other small cities that are interested in what we're doing. And so to the extent that we can have the same rules, I think that is best, particularly in the metro area. But are there any opportunities for cost sharing? If these other jurisdictions might be using our EIR to develop their own ordinances?
Supervisor Scrivener, there are a couple of cities who have reached out to me who would like to be part of this fiscal analysis and would like to know what the revenue could be for them if they did adopt this. They did say they would pay for that. I would like to note that we will not be able to share with the City of Bakersfield at this point, because the City of Bakersfield has a voter initiative petition that's always been submitted to them. So rather than complicate and slow down our process, they're going to go forward with that and see what happens, and we're going to continue along with our. But we do have some other small cities in the valley and in other areas that are reaching out, and I'm having meetings with them. As well, we have talked to the cities that are banning it and discussed, setbacks from their city limits for greenhouse cultivation. The kind of cultivation that we are talking about actually has high security. It doesn't look like a greenhouse from the outside. It actually looks like a food processor type of operation with major security, and Supervisor Maggart had brought up before about mobile delivery. There are some bills that I'm working with the CAO's office that are in the legislature we would like to bring to you for support. And one of them is that mobile delivery could be made from large-scale processing plants rather than having to come from a dispensary. This actually might be a better fit than having mobile deliveries out of dispensaries if they're actually coming from a processing plant that is not necessarily downtown. Three other bills. One is to make driving while impaired a DUI. The other is to limit cartoons and other sorts of attractive things on edible packaging. And the third just slipped my mind, but we will be bringing these, we are monitoring the bills in Sacramento to make sure that your board also has an opportunity to weigh in on these types of changes that really could be more supportive of a strong regulatory process.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Oviatt. I'll ask if there are any comments from members of the public.
David Fluhart, Havilah, 1st District again. I guess if I have a theme today, it's God works in mysterious ways to make long shots come true. In September, I don't think we would have thought we would have been here, but here we are. And I want to say you guys are going about it the right way with the environmental impact review and the fiscal study. I think those are two really bright spots that will help you decide what to do. At a certain point, we need to think outside the box on this. There's a weedism that says, I'm not sure if marijuana will save the world, but it's the only thing that can. So I know when we look at it, we have to, I've said this before, reassess, redefine, and retool it to be a karma good. The simple fact is that the state's status quo will not mitigate the damages. So something unknown, uncreated, needs to be created, and that falls on you guys. So I really look forward to the work that you're about to do, and want to say thank you, congratulations, and in God we trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fluhart. Who'll be next, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Dennis Fox. And currently, marijuana growing is an environmental disaster. It's not wildlife friendly. They shoot the deer, which are deprecating their crop, and the deer not necessarily dying happy. The insecticides that have been banned in this country since the 60s are abused. The jugs that it comes in are thrown in the water to hide it, and it kills all the fish and aquatic life. This stuff should be taken in. Also, it should be noted what is done to Mendocino County, where you have a sheriff's department that is security service for the dope growers. The other thing is something to remember is going to be the impacts on the people. In his book about Soma, where everybody's taken it, Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, talks about the people being quite acquiescent to everything that is put upon them. And he said something. He says, I placed this novel in the 25th century. I didn't think it was all going to come true in my lifetime. So there's some severe issues to look at, and how much we want. How much do we want the trimmigrants, which are really, really a problem, and you have it here, active, and how much you're going to have a lot of repercussions. It ain't all going to be fun, folks. And it hasn't been, and it's not going to be, and it needs to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb. And I have faith in Ms. Oviatt that she will get that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Any other speakers?
Hi, my name is Megan McGinnis. I apologize. This is actually not about number 7. I was just hoping that we would have an opportunity to revisit item 4. I've never been part of a public hearing before, and I actually wasn't able to find it on the agenda before you guys passed.
Okay, you said item number 4?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me see if I can determine, what was your statement or your concern on item 4?
I just wanted to go on record as being opposed to the easement on my property.
Okay. Well, then we're going to need to open that item back up then.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Ms. Oviatt, do you have any comment? Because I think I'm going to ask for a motion to open this item up.
Just that we weren't aware of any opposition to this item, that's why it was on consent.
Okay. This is Supervisor Gleason's district, so I'll ask him what he'd like to do.
This is the first I've heard of your opposition. I wish I had heard about it sooner, but I would be very much interested in letting this young lady have her say.
Okay, well then let's close out with item 7 that we're on, and then right after that, we'll entertain a motion, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks. And, okay, any other comments on item 7? Please come forward. If there's anyone else in the audience that would like to make comment, if you could please come forward so we could move through this hearing quickly. So this will be the last speaker. I don't see anyone standing up. Okay, this is our last speaker.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Arnold Chambers, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm sitting in the audience feeling like I want to take this opportunity to just say, with regard to marijuana use, I've worked for the last 30 years with the children, teenagers of our community. I realize a very fine work is being done on land use, and I hope we'll continue to notice the impact on the children and the families of our community when we make decisions. I drove down River Boulevard today. I live in the old East Bakersfield neighborhood still, and I was struck by the number of dispensaries and the little children on foot walking by them to school, and all of the stores that have the smoke items, as you put it so well, Supervisor Maggard, garishly displayed, calling them in, right by 7-Elevens, right by Washington Junior High. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. Noble School. These dear little children are going to be drawn in very quickly. So please keep the children in mind as you make these land use decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. Okay, so that concludes the comments from the public on this item, and so I'm going to ask for a motion to receive and file.
So
From the
moved.
board. Here we have a motion. Second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, and so now I'll go to Supervisor Gleason in regards to item 4, which was passed on consent.
I'd like to withdraw item 4 from the consent agenda and hear it.
Okay, is the motion to reopen item 4? Okay, so we have a motion, a second?
Second.
All right, please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we are going to consider item number 4 on the agenda, and so I ask you to please come forward. I apologize, I'm going to ask you to state your name again because I neglected to write it down.
My name is Megan McGinnis.
Megan McGinnis, okay, thank you. And Ms. Oviatt, why don't can you set us up as far as just telling us what this item is? And then I'll ask you to make your comments, just so the public's aware of what we're talking about.
This is a non-summary vacation of a public utility easement, 10 feet in width on a variety of lots 32, 33, 34, 35, 38, 54, 85, 86, and 87 of tract map 3572 in the Ridgecrest area. The Indian Wells Valley Water District has petitioned to vacate 2 segments of this public utility easement. As you know, in the front of all lots, in all tracts, there is a 10-foot public utility easement. You cannot landscape it, build in it, or otherwise use it. It is supposed to be set aside only for public utilities. The Indian Wells Valley Water District was approached by these lots and indicated that was it necessary for their use? They said they would never be using it. And it does, once it's vacated, allow the property owner to use that 10 feet. We did mail notices to everyone, and we received no letters in opposition. So that is what is before your board today.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, then I guess I don't.
It's not as bad as you thought.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
good. Well, that's good.
Thank you.
Do you have any other comments now that you've heard the explanation?
No.
Very
Did you
good.
drive all the way from Ridgecrest?
Yes, I did.
I feel your pain.
Every Monday
Yeah.
and Tuesday.
At least.
We were able to get a nice lunch.
Yes, that's okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you, Ms. Soviet. Okay, I'll ask if there are any other members of the public that would like to make comment before I return to the board. Okay, seeing none, I'll return to Supervisor Gleason.
Motion on staff's recommendation.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
All right, thank you very much. I don't think they're all going to be that easy today. Well, we're now on to item number 11. This is an item under the Public Works Department, Building and Development. And I'll read briefly what this is in regards to. Debt Advisory Committee hearing pursuant to the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, and proposed resolution to approve issuance of $4.7 million in multifamily housing revenue bonds by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority for the Camellia Place II Apartments, consisting of a 16-unit multifamily rental housing project located at 1329. Boy, they got some hard names in here. Chattahoochee Lane, Bakersfield. Okay, we have Greg Fenton here that heads up our engineering, surveying, and permit services and building and development. Mr. Fenton, good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Got to admit, Chattahoochee has a ring to it, though, doesn't it?
It does, but not when you're reading it for the first time in public. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. As you indicated, your board has been requested to conduct this TEFRA hearing, that's the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibilities Act, regarding proposed execution and delivery of some multifamily housing revenue bonds. The California Statewide Communities Development Authority proposes to issue these tax-exempt revenue bonds to finance the acquisition, construction, and development of a 16-unit housing project, again, on Chattahoochee Lane, just like saying that. The bonds will be used by the authority to provide a loan to Camellia Place II, a limited partnership, or a partnership created by corporation for better housing. At this time, the applicant's requesting issuance in the amount of not to exceed $4.7 million related to this project. The county's Debt Advisory Committee met on January 12, 2017 with the applicant and the authority to discuss this project. The County of Kern will not be the issuer and therefore has no liability with the bond issue. The Debt Advisory Committee reviewed this issue for consistencies with the county's debt financing policies and found them to be consistent with those policies because it offers a public benefit by providing affordable housing for the next several years. And so the committee unanimously recommended your board conduct today's TEFRA hearing to satisfy requirements per the International Revenue Code. That code actually requires each project to be financed by an issue of activity bonds to be approved by the governmental unit issuing the bonds, as well as a governmental unit having jurisdiction over the area. So that's why we're here today. So that concludes my presentation. There is a representative from the Statewide Communities Development Authority. If you have any questions, otherwise it'd be appropriate to open the hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fenton. So we will open the hearing and receive any public comment on this item.
David Fluhart, Havilah, 1st District. I'm really stretching here on this one, but first of all, it's recognized that Kern County has, I guess, no liability in this, but at some point it's a bond, and it's a bond to, I guess, some state agency. And at some point it's $4.7 million for 16 units, which equals $300,000 a unit. So that's quite a bit for a unit. Now, to balance that off, I guess it's over 99 years, and so it comes out to $250 a month. I'm not quite sure. This kind of stuff confuses me. The only thing I want to say is we're working on affordable housing. And, you know, I'm real big on affordable housing. That's the name of my dispensary. Affordable Housing Ad Hoc Task Force Committee. Thank you guys very much. It's been 3 years, and we've been working on it. Next week we'll have the Whiskey Flats selection, and it was 3 years that it's been since you guys have gotten rid of that standing committee or the ad hoc committee, and I've took it over for a marijuana dispensary. So let me tell you, I'm really looking forward to reassessing, redefining, and retooling marijuana to be a karma good, because at this kind of prices for this many units, I don't know, it seems kind of extreme, and we got to be able to do something better for affordable housing. And that's the karma good that we're searching for. So I know I shouldn't have really spoken on this, but affordable housing, that's the key. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Ms. Oviatt, would you like to respond to that?
Lorelei Oviatt, Director of Planning and Natural Resources. This is actually a housing program through your HUD funding. It happens that it has to go through the Debt Advisory Committee, but we certainly agree. And if the federal government would not have so much red tape on the money that they send down for us to build affordable housing, I'm sure we could do it for less. We are doing the best we can with the rules we have, and we look forward to helping change some of those rules at the HUD level in the coming years in regards to the red tape. This particular project is an extension of a project that we already have that's very successful. And one of our challenges always is with our private partners is to meet the deadlines. So we would ask that you do approve this today, and we appreciate the thoughts that perhaps that is a lot, but I believe the people who live in those low-income, affordable families will be very grateful for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. Any other public comments?
Christine Montez, M-O-N-T-E-Z. As a recipient of Housing Authority, I would be homeless without it. I do not plan to stay within Housing Authority forever, but I am unendingly grateful for the programs that are given there. I don't think any cost is too great to help needy families, and I think you should approve this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montez. Anyone else, please? Only one bite at the apple per item. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we'll return to the board for any comments, or I'll seek a motion on staff's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Fenton, thank you, sir. And Ms. Oviatt. Okay, that, let's see, brings us to our final item on the agenda, which is item number 22. And this is an item under the County Administrative Office, General Services Division. It's a public hearing to establish ordinance implementing a $5 daily and a $50 annual parking fee at Hart Memorial Park. Designate 4 free parking days to coincide with President's Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day, and Veterans Day, and establish special interest-bearing revenue fund dedicated to the maintenance, operation, and improvement of Hart Memorial Park. And so I'll start off by asking Jeff Frapwell, who heads up our General Services Division in the County Administrative Office, to kick us off. Good afternoon, Mr. Frapwell, and I see you have Mr. Haney with you as well.
Thank you, Chairman Scrivener. The item before you is really a continuance from your board's consideration of this item on the adoption of resolution ordinance, from January 10th. Mr. Haney is here to make our staff presentation, and then we have a number of people in the audience who would like to make presentations to your board, and we'd be happy to answer questions after that point. But Mr. Haney?
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as Jeff said, this is a continuation of item from January 10th. The item, as Chairman Scrivener outlined, is a recommendation from your Parks and Recreation Commission of a $5 daily, $50 annual parking fee for Hart Park. In addition, the recommendation from the commission is that fees collected would be dedicated to a special revenue fund that would be dedicated to the sole use of Hart Park for the operation, maintenance, and improvements. In addition, the recommendation from the commission is that 4 free days would be recommended so that the public would have some opportunities for vacation from those fees. As a point of clarification, the ordinance has been amended to specifically say that it is a parking fee. In the previously meeting, there was a vehicle entry fee language that has been corrected. To clarify, that means it is parking fee only for Hart Park and no other park within the Parks Department or Parks Division. The reason for the continuation is your board had 2 concerns at the January 10th meeting. The first was the impact to traffic along Alfred Harrell Highway. In addition, the board had questions as to the number of free days that were being offered. Subsequent to that meeting, we met with Public Works to determine whether the pay station location would have any impact to traffic along Alfred Harrell Highway. Having met with Mr. Pope and his staff, they determined that the pay station locations that are proposed will not provide any impact to traffic along Alfred Harrell Highway. And also, he is in the audience, may have additional comments as to regarding no parking zones that may be established outside of the park in order to eliminate pedestrian safety concerns. In addition to that, your Parks and Recreation Commission took up the additional free day issue at its January 25th meeting. During that meeting, additional alternatives were discussed. Those alternatives were discussed considering recreational opportunities, ease of recognition by the public and staff, impact to revenue, and operational impact. Among those recommendations, one included adding Saturdays, the first Saturday of the month, to all the existing recommended 4 days. Another recommendation suggested perhaps making all holidays free days for the park. While these alternatives do maximize recreational opportunities, they do potentially create the biggest hit to revenue. Also, holidays, because of their inconsistency between federal, state, local, and school holidays, potentially can cause confusion between the public and the staff as far as what days are free and are not. Additional alternatives were recommended as perhaps the first Monday, or the fourth Wednesday of the month. These set days do make it easy to remember for both the public and for the staff to know which days are being offered and which are not. And Wednesdays would have probably the least revenue impact. There was also a suggestion that no free days would be offered during the first year from the public, thereby giving the department a year to collect data to determine which fiscal impact would be the greatest or least before offering free days. We acknowledge and appreciate the public's input through this process, not only with the Parks and Recreation Commission meetings over the last 18 months, but your January 10th board meeting and subsequent phone and email correspondence that have been received during the last month. The input is appreciated because it does show that the public does care greatly about the condition of the park and the things that we can do to help improve it. And depending on your board's actions, and whether the conditional approval today, we do commit to holding a public process to gather user input for what amenities the public would like to see in the park. That concludes my comments, and Mr. Frappel and I stand by ready for answer questions.
Mr. Frappel, do you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to reiterate Mr. Haney's comments that we are committed to conduct a public process to seek input from stakeholders on how they'd like to see this park, this incredibly important asset that we have in the county, be improved in the next few years. I mean, I think that's important. And the fee being considered today is really just one piece, in my perspective, on how we the county, move this forward to make the improvements necessary for the enjoyment of the public. So we're committed to a public process. We don't think the consideration of this fee today is mutually exclusive, and we would recommend that your board consider your Parks Commission's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frappel. Mr. Haney, you made mention of the consultation with the roads, with our our Public Works Department in regards to traffic. That was something that I know personally I was concerned about, and so I know other board members expressed that concern as well, and I've heard from members of the public. So I do want to ask Mr. Pope just to make some comments on his analysis and any impacts that he identified before we open it up for the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, Craig Pope, Public Works Director. We looked at this situation, and our biggest concern was that if people were required to pay for parking, they'd just move outside onto Alfred Harold Highway, and then we'd have a great deal of pedestrian traffic moving in. I think our answer there would be to post no parking, probably from Goodmanville to the entrance, and then from the entrance on the east end out to the soccer complex. This would also help the issue out at the soccer complex where people are starting to park on Alfred Harold Highway there. We don't think the location of the kiosks that they're proposing would slow down traffic, that it would impact Alfred Harold Highway in any way. So we think they have a way of mitigating the traffic concerns and the pedestrian traffic concerns out there.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Pope before we go to the public? Supervisor Gleason? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. I am going to ask now if any members of the board would like to make comment, and then we'll go to the public. Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you, appreciate it. Hart Park is in District 1, so thank you all for coming. I see a lot of people here today. I know a lot of you have passion. I've heard of it, and I've heard it. And so in order to make this afternoon's meeting perhaps more efficient, I thought that I would offer you my thoughts as they stand right now to help you shape your public comment as we go through it, whether you want to talk or not talk. And understanding that I have an open mind, and what I'm offering you now is my opinion as I sit here today, not where I sit in 20 minutes or 30 minutes when you're done, when I hit the button. So it may change based on your contributions to the public process. But I thought I would just give you some thoughts from where I sit to help you and help us create an efficient meeting. I've heard a lot of people speak. I heard Supervisor Maggart speak so eloquently a couple weeks ago. I've heard others speak, and it's been significantly moving to understand their passion, and so it's easy for me to see your passion in Hart Park and the opportunities that at one time existed in that park, but perhaps we've lost and they don't exist anymore. And somehow we're here today to try to recreate something, and it seems to be focused on a parking fee. And I'm not sure that is the argument that we should be having today. I think the discussion today should be more of put in a larger context. And I don't think having a conversation A or nay, up and down on parking fees answers the mail that you're looking for, and I don't think it answers the mail that you're looking for, and I certainly don't believe that it's in the best interest of Kern County. I guess what I'm saying is this. There are glaring deficiencies, and we are in a fiscally demanding, we're in a crisis. And we have to make decisions, difficult decisions, and we will make decisions. And 2 weeks ago, whenever we met last, I was ready to push the button on a parking fee. We got to have it because we're going to lose a gem of a park if we don't create some revenue stream to support it. I still feel very much in favor of creating that revenue stream from that park, but I don't know that we're doing it justice. I think there's a bigger picture. And I heard everybody speak eloquently, but the most important person I heard speak about it was Mr. Alsop at a meeting we were having just recently, where he discussed a dissatisfaction with his understanding of being a new guy with a new perspective on what our vision is for our Parks Department. What is the vision? Where is Kern County going? It's not so much what are we doing with Hart Park, it is what are we doing as a county with all our parks? Where are we? Where are we going? What is the demand signal? What is the supply signal? And what do we want to do? And how do we want to shape our future? So it elevated in my mind the conversation from, parking fees at Hart Park to, okay, I got a bunch of parks in Kern that are neglected and barren and abused. I have parks in Delano that Memorial Park is just we're not treating it right. I'm not saying we have money and we need to redirect money from public safety to the Parks Department, and I'm not suggesting that. And I wouldn't support that. but I am supportive of capturing the entire argument and putting it out there for all of us to see, so that it's not just Hart Park we're talking about. It's these parks that mean so much to the people in Delano. The Memorial Park, which is it's in tough shape. You know, I just think that it's time that we, you know, I sincerely appreciate the Parks and Rec Commission, what they've done, and I respect and honor their work, and I respect and honor their recommendation, and I'm willing to support them and go to the mat farm. I recognize the fact that they have not had the opportunity, for whatever reason, of public participation in the past year that they've been diligently going through their work to come up with this recommendation. They have not heard or felt or seen, and so I don't want to disregard their inputs, because I value that extreme, but now we are having, for whatever reason, now we're getting the public involvement. So I'm thinking here as I'm going through my thinking that this could be a pivot point for our Parks Department in developing not a satisfactory answer for, the satisfactory answer for Hart Park may be, we're going to raise the parking fees. And I'm not opposed to that. I'd hit the button yes on that if that's part and parcel of a larger picture where we know where we're going, we're on the road, this is where we're going, and I'm sorry, but it's the decisions we need to make and the consequences we need to bear because of those decisions, I'm okay with it. But I don't think that we've got there yet. I know we did a parks plan a couple years ago. I'm not sure that has been completely wrung out as best we possibly can. I think there's some things we can look at to create this overall vision of where we want all our parks to be, prioritizing whatever we need to do based on use, or maybe put parking fees in all of them. I don't know. But what I'm thinking is, I'm sitting here thinking, before I make a narrow decision on where we're going to do with parking fees getting into Hart Park, what are we doing with parks in general in Kern County? I just wanted to share that with you. That might piss off some of you. It might make some of you happy. I don't know. But that's where I'm sitting today, and that's my thinking. So if you want to come and spend some time talking with us, please understand that that's where I'm sitting. Please be efficient in your words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason. Any other comments from members of the board before we go to the public? Okay. We do have 3 individuals that have requested to show, I think, a couple of short videos and then a PowerPoint. And so that's Harry Love, Leah Carter, and Eddie Lane. And so I'm going to allow them to go first. But I do want to get an idea. I know there's several people here that are interested in the subject, but I want to get a sense, how many want to actually speak? Because I'm trying to manage the clock here. Okay, I want to try to finish by 4 on this item.
Today.
Yes, and so let's, all right, so Madam Clerk, if you can put up, I'm going to ask her to put up 30 minutes on the clock, and we will do our best to remain within that time period. If we go over a little, I want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak. I would ask that you don't repeat comments from other speakers, if at all possible. And so let's start it off. So Mr. Love, Ms. Carter, Mr. Lane, if you can please come up. I don't know if do we have that queued up already? Okay.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Harry Love, and I'm the Conservation Chair of the Audubon Society. Our organization, along with other groups and individuals, are members of an ad hoc committee formed when we learned this proposal was initiated. So it's been a month we formed. And our group was formed to help you, the Board of Supervisors, to receive input from citizens on this topic of imposing a parking fee at the park. We also see another goal, provide a mechanism for incorporating community ideas into the process. And for the clerk, I distribute to you. This is a list of the ad hoc committee, 32 members and growing. So we're not looking at a small number, and they've formed in the last month. What I'd like the members of the chair to see, and the members of the supervisor and the audience to see, Hart Park, 100 years. So I will proceed through some slides You can see 1929, and those people remember their American history. This is the beginning of the Depression. So you can tell economic issues, they still went forward with it. That's with Kern River Park, by the way, that's its original name, not Hart Park. And you can get a look at 1936, again, middle of the Depression. With a plunge, which is no longer there, what it existed. And you can see it's a hand dug, pick and shovel for the lake, 1933. Kern River Park, picnicking at that time. And a water filter house, this is for the plunge, so as water was brought in, it would be filtered and brought into the plunge area out of the river. That's what remains of it today. So if you drive into the park, you say, why is that there? That is why it's there. It's left over. And you can see many uses at the park have taken place historically. And you're familiar with, this is a reconstruction of the water wheel, and it is almost totally destroyed right now, almost collapsed. And you look at the plunge, and I have some people, which surprises people, they're older than me, that I talked to them, and they said, yes, I remember that plunge very well, being there 1940. And you can see concessionaires were there. So they had all the kinds of things. I like the first one, rheumatoid, suffers of rheumatoid, could go there. And you can see there the overhead view of what Hart Park looked like at the early time. WPA, Works Progress Administration, 1930s. That's a historical marker that's out there, 1941. And the last one, it's the gate, it is still there, the only part of it's there. And you can see the fact that it was called the Kern River Park. This is a time when these photos show the greater Bakersfield area. It was a greater Bakersfield Park. Every district that is represented by the 5U meets somewhere in Bakersfield. So this is not a District 1 park, it is a 5-district park. And I hope you look at it that way on your solutions today. What happened? Benign neglect by the owners. Who were the owners? County of Kern and the citizens of Kern County. We're the owners. There's no doubt something needs to be done. Now is the time that we need to act. But guess what? There's already a 300-plus page document. Supervisor Gleason referred to something a few years back. Well, 2010 was the year in which there was the board at that time agreed and had a committee formed with a group out of Los Angeles that said, we will do the process exactly. 300 pages of information. It's a master plan for parks and recreation, not just Hart Park. It was developed over many months and after numerous public workshops. And I believe it appropriate for me now to read parts of that 300-plus page that apply to Hart Park. Again, this is 7 years ago. Quote, establish a nonprofit charitable organization to support the county park system. Goal number 10, engage Kern County residents in the planning, stewardship, and programming of park and recreation resources. Adopt a park program and other community involvement efforts to encourage community members to take ownership of their parks. Consider partnership opportunities for advertising parks, programs, and services. Promote volunteerism to enhance community ownership and stewardship of parks. Identify opportunities for volunteers to support parks. Conduct periodic need assessments, community surveys. And finally, I'd like you to listen to how it concludes. Initially, Kern County government should take the leadership role of building the public support needed for the immediate priority of improving existing parks and recreation facilities. As first step, the Regional Park Authority Formation Committee should be formed to develop a campaign strategy, educate the public, and present the program to the public. The proposal before you today ignores these recommendations. Recommendations based on numerous meetings with public input. The solutions to the problems of Hart Park lie with the people. This can best be reached by workshops, also known as charrettes. This idea is not new to us in Bakersfield, Kern County. The Bakersfield 2020 plan was developed around this core principle. Well, I have for you, because our committee of 32, and I have one more thing for Kathleen. We solicited petitions. I guess numbers are important. There's over 700 citizens of Kern County, 772, by the way, and I'm getting more petitions being brought to me this afternoon. There's some that say from students, and that's how it's listed, high school students from at least 3 different high schools. You look at addresses on there, they're not just one street, one block, one area of town, they're all over town. So everybody understand this is not just the east side or the northeast side, it's everything. So the petitions of the citizens. Well, I would like now to have our next speaker, who would like to now talk to Leah, would talk about the certain population of the county that would be affected by the proposal.
Sorry, here we go. Mr. Love,
Yes.
Supervisor Perez has a question for you before
All right,
Ms. Carter
yes.
speaks.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes.
I'm looking at the list of people here. Is that the 32 that you're referencing? I see a
Yes.
list here of 2. It includes, I see Steve Schilling.
Yes.
Jeff Green. Is that Jeff Green of Grimway?
I believe it is, but his role as none of our speakers talk, belongs to an organization that we represent one of our speakers today.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I also, we met yesterday. I appreciate that you
You're
brought
welcome.
a group.
Thank you for meeting with us.
I appreciate that. I learned quite a bit at that meeting. And Mr. Iger was there of Iger Photography.
Yes.
Is he here today?
I believe he
Okay.
had a conflict.
Is he one of the members that would be joining if possible?
Yes, right. We're going to.
Because I don't see his name here.
Pardon me?
I don't see his name
No,
here.
because I think we obviously our list was compiled last night and the night before, and Greg attended the meeting yesterday, so we will definitely put Greg on our meeting as we add to our group.
Well, you're moving fast. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Leah?
Thank you, Mr. Love. Good afternoon, Ms. Carter.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. I'd like to point out that Jeff Green is here as an individual, not as Grimley. Yes. Is he here? He's not here. He's on the list, is what I mean. Yes. As a 31-year user of Hart Park, a registered dietitian, an organizer for the Southern Sierra Hiking Club, and an advocate for low-income people and for public health, I strongly oppose having a fee for accessing public lands that should be available to all, regardless of ability to pay. I've been using the park for over 30 years, and I go there every single week, and I can tell you, without a doubt, the biggest group of users includes Hispanic people, and a lot of the people that are users of Hart Park, they are low income, and charging what may seem like a nominal fee to us, $5, can be cost prohibitive for low-income population. And it's unfair to that population who also happens to be at the highest risk for lots of things, including chronic diseases. It's unfair to put the undue burden on them. For over 20 years, I have been serving low-income people in Kern County, starting with Clinic of Sierra Vista and now at Bakersfield College. And I have dealt with thousands of people day after day that have told me they don't even have enough money to buy healthy foods, much less have money to spend on frivolous things. And going to Hart Park would become a frivolous event in their lives because they don't even have enough money for food. So I feel this is completely unfair of us to consider this kind of situation, especially considering in Kern County, we have one of the highest rates of obesity and poor health outcomes in the entire state of California, and we are discouraging access to public lands, which means that people are not going to be able to exercise as much. We're encouraging our kids not to be able to go outside and play, especially considering that 1/3 of our children live in poverty in Kern County. That's according to the Kern County Network for Children report card last year. And if 1 in 3 children lives in poverty, that means a lot of them live in areas that are unsafe, and parents will not let the children go out to play in unsafe areas. Therefore, it's our obligation to provide free, open spaces for our children to play. So as a registered dietitian and public health advocate, I strongly oppose this fee. And before I conclude, I'd like to show you a short video of 2 community members that asked that we let their voices be heard.
My name's Ray Gonzalez. I was born and raised here in Bakersfield. And as a kid growing up, and I'm kind of an old guy, but as a kid growing up, there wasn't a holiday where we didn't go to Hart Park. Back in the day, it had the biggest swimming pool I'd ever seen in my life, used Kern Water River that went through there and sanitized, and it was just a huge pool. And they had bumper cars, a merry-go-round, ponies, and they had a little train that went around the park, and it was just wonderful. And we'd find a place by the river, and the families would go. Somebody would go early and save the table because it got full. So it's a shame that they're going to start charging. That's terrible.
Good morning. My name is Melissa, and I'm here in regards to Hart Park. It's a very great park. I would love if it would be able to stay open to public. That is where we all go to here on the northeast side or east side of town. Been going there since I was a child. My grandparents would take me and 10 other of the grandkids, and we would go hiking, swimming, fishing, play soccer, baseball. And if they were to take all that away, where would us kids go? You know, where would the kids go? They would be back out in the streets. So I think it'd be a tragedy if they were to start charging low-income people to come into the park to enjoy their families and family time, which is much more needed in this day and age.
I've seen Hart Park deteriorate over the years, so I know we need more money and we need to fix up the park. I just strongly encourage you to find other ways besides charging users for the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. And now I'll ask Mr. Lane to come forward.
My name is Eddie Lane, E-D-D-Y-L-A-I-N-E. I live at 17150 Advantage Point Court. I live in Rio Bravo 2. After 25 years in the Southwest, I moved there 5 years ago because of river access to the river. And I'm very familiar with the whole corridor there. It includes Hart Park, the soccer field, Calm, the golf course, Ming Lake, and the Piles group picnic area. So there's a whole corridor along there which I'm quite familiar with. One of the things that I notice when I come to town, and I specifically drive through Hart Park because I like it, is that after a heavy use weekend, the trash bins are overflowing. And there's even sometimes trash stacked alongside the bins. And sometimes that trash is in disarray. And the reason is because we have raccoons in the park, and we have skunks in the park, and even some cats. So that is one of the contributing factors to the trash issue. I know that trash is not too popular, but I'm going to talk a little bit about trash this afternoon. Let me go to a picture here. Oops, let me go to the next one. Am I going the right way? I think I'm going the wrong way. I've already had Ray in. Thank you, Ray. Thank you. Okay. All right. These are trash bins. There are 5 of them total in the small park, which is adjacent to Ming Lake. This is part of the area I walk in, and I take my granddaughter there. It's a beautiful little park. Notice how many there are in this area. Here we are now at the campground, Kern River Campground, and this campground has a lot of trash bins, one for about every 2 spots where people camp. This is another view of that campground. And then we go to Hart Park. Here's Hart Park. These were pictures I've shown to some members of your staff. Here's Hart Park 1. Here's Hart Park 2. Notice there's a picnic table there. I don't see any trash bin anywhere. Here's another picture of the park, and here's another picture. There's one. So the question I have, by the way, here's a little trash bin out there with a little bit of art in the park exercise there. This is back in the campground area. But the question I have is, how are trash bins currently allocated? Is it by size of the park or usage of the park? Until we have a real handle on the distribution of trash bins, I don't think we ought not go forward. Now I want to switch to restrooms. This is a restroom in Hart Park. This is a different restroom in Hart Park. This is the restroom of that little park connected to Ming Lake. This is the restroom at the campground. This is another picture of the restroom at the campground. And finally, this is a little portable one down by Ming Lake that gets heavy usage, including by me. And my question is, how is there a county-wide or even area-wide plan to address restroom or restoration or repair or whatever? My guess is that porta potty there, whatever it's called, might need to be retired. So let me go on here. I guess that's it. I want to also, while I'm up here, and I appreciate this opportunity, I have a couple of budget questions I'd like to raise.
Kathy.
These are Hart Park budget questions. These are all from the source documents that you've been dealing with for a long, long time. In the budget, there are accomplishments listed. There's a grant for a walking path at Potomac Park. There's a first dog park at Leroy Jackson Park in collaboration with community groups. There's a new restroom at Mount Mesa Park. In other budget information that the board has been provided, there's an indication that there's a $750,000 budget for Hart Park. This is a relatively large piece of the budget, 6%. Is there a detailed budget which shows that $750,000, what it currently pays for? The second question is, what would the special revenue fund supplement and in what amount specifically? What would that be used for? And finally, there are no accomplishments here listed for Hart Park. What efforts have been made to secure grants for Hart Park, and what collaborative efforts have been done with Hart Park as were done in a couple of other instances? So these are questions I would like to have answered before we proceed with the possible fee. And again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
I'm supposed to introduce Marion. So.
Okay. The questions that you asked, we will go to staff after the public comments are over, and we'll answer these to the best we can now. If not, we can answer them in writing.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Marion Vargas. I have been a user of Hart Park since 1969. My comments will focus on concerns regarding transparency, lack of public input, unanswered questions, and a call to action. I first learned about the proposed parking fee just before the January 10th board meeting. While trying to become informed on the issue, I found a link to the Parks and Recreation Commission's minutes on the county website. But there were, in fact, no minutes available to read. It took phone calls and emails to finally access commission minutes, which I reviewed for meetings since July 22nd of 2015. I found a recurring theme of concern for Hart Park's deterioration, lamentations over lack of staff and funding to properly maintain the park and its buildings, and the only solution considered over and over was that of charging users a fee for parking. Throughout the 11 meetings where the issue was discussed were repeated comments of the need for more public input, but there was no indication of effective outreach. There were no surveys of park users, neither of individuals nor groups. There was little reference to the 2010 Parks and Recreation Master Plan and its detailed recommendations for park enhancement and maintenance. There are still unanswered questions about the parking fee proposal before you. What is the cost of purchasing and installing the pay stations and signage, including alluded to no parking signs on the roadways approaching the entrances to the park? It is unclear that the estimated $150,000 annual income from parking fees was determined by reliable data. Counting cars on random days of a given month is not good research and is poor justification for this claim. At the January 25th commission meeting, it was explained that volunteers would be exempt from paying the parking fee. If so, what is the criteria for being a volunteer? Also, there was unresolved discussion of the need to clarify if groups who had paid park reservation fees would have to pay the parking fee. What is the plan for fee enforcement? There are only 6 park rangers and 2 security staff for all of Kern County. Realistically, how can there be adequate staff to enforce the ordinance? Are there rangers on duty during all the hours that the park is open? With regard to the proposed dedicated fund, who will oversee and monitor the monies? What will be the procedure and criteria for utilization of the funds? How much money needs to be in the account before it is to be used? In talking with park users and community members since the last board meeting, I learned that litter and bathroom maintenance are major concerns of citizens willing to support the parking fee. People are angry about the condition of the park, and rightfully so. They say that if there is a parking fee, people won't litter, or maybe they'll stop going to the park. If they do continue to litter, the parking fee money could go for cleanup. But what is to say that the problem wouldn't just move down the road to another park area where there is no parking fee? Instead of a parking fee, how about signage to keep Hart Park clean and discourage littering, trash bag dispensers to make it easier to clean up, and sufficient animal-proof trash bins located near where users enjoy the park? Put a priority on bathroom maintenance. Isn't that a public health issue? Let's take a positive approach to solving this problem and proactively explore other resources. And thank you, Mr. Gleason. While it is true that disadvantaged citizens benefit from being able to utilize Hart Park without a parking fee, so do the rest of us, young and old, of all socioeconomic and ethnic groups. Walkers, hikers, bicyclists, bird watchers, cat lovers, frisbee throwers, equestrians, fishermen, photographers, artists, thinkers, and more. The path to solving the issues at the park will take time. Time is not an enemy, but will aid in finding workable solutions. Let us all come together and work to care for Hart Park. While budget funds have diminished because of the downturn in the oil industry, Kern County is not really broke. There are other economic drivers and resources. Do not enact a parking fee at Hart Park at this time. Reach out to the community itself, truly Kern County's greatest resource, and you will see that there is a better way. Thank you.
Thank you. Who will be next, please?
Yeah, she'll be next.
My name is Rachel Jerdin, Jerdin. I'm here, I don't know how I can represent everybody who's disabled, but I am disabled. I've had cancer since, or diagnosed in 2000, breast cancer, and it metastasized in 2010, and I'm a stage 4. I have chemotherapy every 3 weeks, and one of the things that I find very important about Hart Park is that it's a place I can go to get away from it, not think about all that I'm going through. And a year after I had been diagnosed for stage 4 cancer, I fell and I broke my back, so I also have constant pain. I take pain medications regularly and it helps a lot. However, I can do much less pain if I find some ways to get away from thinking about what it is I'm going through. I take an art class through the Bakersfield Arts Center, and I oftentimes go out to Hart Park and work on my art there. And it makes me feel so much better. And I notice that I can get by with much less pain meds. Well, I know there are a lot of other disabled people too, and I'm sure that they have their reasons why they would like to have Hart Park. But another thing I want to bring up is that when I go there, I can park close to a table, not very far away, and make it. Otherwise, it's like too much for me to handle. So I appreciate that. Being on a fixed income, if you charge, that is going to not be an option for me anymore. Thank you very much.
Please come forward.
Hi, my name is excuse me. My name is Bill Bauer, and I represent the Southern Sierra Hiking Club.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Yeah, Baugher. And the Southern Sierra Hiking Club, we have currently a membership of over 2,000 members. I'm also speaking on behalf of the hundreds of trail runners, hikers who do not belong to our group, mountain bikers, etc. We use the south end of the park. We park at the sheriff's shooting range, and we use that park on a regular basis. We provide a very, very important community service, not only to the members of our organization, but to all other individuals who want to hike, mountain bike, get in shape, lose weight, and so forth. And I've seen literally hundreds, if not thousands, of hikers and runners use that park over the last 5 years. Our group currently uses the Hart Park area this week alone 8 different times. We have a very active conditioning hiking group, and so we use that on a regular basis. I have 2 concerns regarding the fee that is being proposed. One of them is I believe it will have a very detrimental effect on our group in particular, particularly new members trying to come into our hiking organization because they come through this. I don't think they're going to be willing to pay a $5 fee. Also, I know personally that we have a number of members in our hiking group who are unemployed, they're retired, they're on limited incomes, and they will be probably excluded from using the park on a regular basis like they currently do. My other concern is that I suspect and predict that many of the hundreds of hikers and runners and so forth will try to avoid the fee. They will try to enter the park from numerous areas, probably south of the park. They may come in on cars, they may come in on bikes, and they will probably do so either because they cannot or do not want to pay the regular fee, or they'll do so on principle, because we really don't use the park. We don't use the bathroom facilities. We don't use trash cans. We just park in the sheriff's area, and then we hike into the hills behind it, which I don't believe may be owned by the county, but is not part of the park itself. So I predict that's probably what's going to happen, and that may create all kinds of problems for the county if that were to happen. In conclusion, I would just like to say that Hart Park is the only area within driving distance of the city limits of Bakersfield where hikers such as myself can get the kind of workout that I need. On a regular basis, I see trail runners, hikers, marathoners out there. We have no other place to go within the city limits Monday through Friday. So that's going to create a lot of problems for us. And then I'll just conclude on a personal note. I have personally organized and participated in over 500 meetups at that particular park over the last 5 years. And I began going to Hart Park 6 years ago after I broke my back, and the doctors predicted that I would never fully recover from my injury. And Hart Park played a very, very important role in my physical recovery and my psychological sense of well-being. And I think it would be very unfortunate if anybody in the county of Kern County might be excluded by the decisions that are made. And so that's my concern, and I'll end with that.
My name is Ann Gallen. I'm a member of the 700-member Sierra Club in this area, and I attend Emmanuel Lutheran on Baker Street, serving the neighborhood of East Bakersfield. And my introduction to Bakersfield was being on the first faculty of Foothill High School on the far east side of town. In fact, that's the name that was on some of the boxes of books in the library when I got there, for Far East High, before they came up with the name Foothill. To get through this quickly, through the chair to Mr. Gleason, I appreciate your comments about what we say about Hart Park maybe applying to all of the parks in town, and to Mr. Alsop, welcome to town. And we all know that Parks and Recreation is hamstrung for money, and we think that this idea of a parking fee should be labeled as just a quick fix. But it's for long-term complicated problems that they have there, and it's a Band-Aid approach. So we ask what's been accomplished since that 2010 master plan for Kern County parks that laid out the steps you could be taking. This is the plan.
has the Park Commission looked at Rotary clubs for help, hospitals and the medical community for ideas to make our parks serve the community in a healthy way? Have they approached the chambers of commerce for their input? The building industry to say if they can give us some advice on infrastructure? With our major employers like oil, wind, solar, and agriculture invited to contribute funds. They could do it to Hart Park, they could do it to all the parks, and they could provide brain power and manpower and income-generating ideas. And a vibrant park is good for business and for economic development in the whole area. So, skipping ahead, I hope that you will also want a public participation process. And I thank you for the opportunity to address the board, and I introduce Patty Montoya next.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener and members of the board. I have 1 minute, 16 seconds. I think I can do it. My name is Patty Montoya, Montoya, and I'm a member of Backcountry Horsemen, Mountain Search and Rescue, and other horse-related groups and Friends of the Hart Park. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for undertaking the monumental task of improving Hart Park, the jewel of the Kern County parks. I have wonderful memories of family reunions at Hart Park when I was a child, and now I enjoy taking my granddaughter to feed the peacocks and riding the bridle path. It makes me sad to think of a grandmother might drive through that park and tell her child, you can look at the peacocks, but I'm sorry, we can't get out of the car and go feed them. I realize that due to the budget crisis, the park is now suffering deferred maintenance, and I hope we can come together to find alternatives before we turn to establishing parking fees. I've researched possible alternatives and I'd like to mention just a few. First, there are possible one-time developmental impact fees under the Quimby Act and the Mitigation Fee Act. Second, I'd like the opportunity to work with a committee to contact local businesses who may be able to adopt a specific portion of the park for a 5-year period. For example, perhaps Arrow would adopt one of the bathrooms to refurbish and maintain during a 5-year period. Or maybe Bolt House would adopt the bridle path to rebuild the fence. Horse-related clubs have already said that they would like to be able to do upkeep of the bridle path twice a year for this 5-year period. Another example is professional photographer Greg Iger, who could not be here today, has already stepped up and offered the concept of his business and others who would be willing to furnish a trash can for every table, signage, etc. In turn, signs would be posted as advertisement to indicate these and services were provided by these local businesses. Third, parcel taxes of $5 per parcel could be established throughout the county that would be guaranteed for the maintenance of the park system with a substantial amount set aside for Hart Park. These are just some of the quick ideas I believe may offer us some possible alternatives to the parking fees. Finally, I would like to request that the Board of Supervisors postpone the fees until we can further research these into alternatives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for trying to get through that quickly too. I appreciate it, Madam. Yeah, that was pretty remarkable. Madam Clerk, let's. I want to get an idea. How many more speakers do we have, please? 1, 2. Okay, I see about 10. We got through 8 in the first half hour. Let's go ahead and set it again for 30, and hopefully that will keep everybody on a good pace. And I appreciate everybody's attempt to get through this as quickly as we can. So let's have the next speaker ask. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Reifel, and I'm part of the ad hoc committee. My last name is spelled R-E-I-F-E-L. As a community, I want to speak about the potential educational uses of Hart Park. As a community, we have failed to fully tap into the rich educational experience that Hart Park could offer our children and youth. The park is part of a whole complex of recreational and educational facilities, including CALM, where many birds, animals indigenous to California are on display. Children go there to learn about native creatures, but a field trip to Hart Park could provide opportunities to see many of these same creatures in the wild, which is, of course, always much more exciting. As you may or may not know, Kern County has more species of birds than any other inland county in the United States, so it offers a rich opportunity for children to learn about the wonders of our county. There are several Kern County organizations whose mission includes providing public information and education. Audubon, Sierra Club, Native Plant Society, to name a few, are all very supportive of Hart Park and would very likely be interested in educating children and youth about the wonderful array of plants and animals. The park could be used for a science camp, like the one that's held a couple of times a year at Panorama Vista Preserve, where children are bussed in for a morning of active learning in nature. Hart Park is very close to Bakersfield College, where it could be possibly an interest to teachers and students who might take on an active role in supporting the park and educating the public about its display of the wonders of nature. In addition, perhaps students in computer-related fields at both BC and CSUB could help with designing a website for the park that would generate more interest and excitement. A method of donating money to support the park could even be built into this site. These are only a few of the possible opportunities for using Hart Park as an educational tool. This is a regional park, and it's unique, it's underfunded, it's underappreciated, but it's a gem that all of the supervisorial districts have a stake in and a responsibility to support and protect and preserve. So in conclusion, the Hart Park Ad Hoc Committee wishes to offer the following 2 requests to the Board of Supervisors. Number 1, the Board of Supervisors should not approve the Hart Park parking fee ordinance. We've offered information today that indicates that this proposal is not supported by sound economic information or public input. Number 2, the Board of Supervisors should direct the General Services Department to prepare a strategy which includes public participation and input, which will result in the development of a master plan for Hart Park. This plan will spell out the options to remedy the issues at Hart Park. This process should occur within the next 3 months. At the completion of that time, a draft master plan will be presented to the Board of Supervisors for adoption. The members of the ad hoc committee, along with the organizations they represent, will offer assistance to the General Services Department with the planning and completion of this task. And finally, in conclusion, I would just like to say that that we urge the board, with the input of the ad hoc committee and other community members, to construct a thoughtful, well-developed master plan that may or may not include a parking fee, but that will ensure the protection, preservation of this special park for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Who will be next, please?
And there's a copy.
Ask the next speaker to please step forward.
I'll be quick.
All right. Good afternoon.
My name is John Wilson. I live on Panorama Drive in District 3. And in my 75 years in Kern County, I've used it many times. I used it when it was called Kern Park. And as a professional photographer, I've used it many times to take families and high school seniors out there. And you know, I just, as a photographer, I can afford to pay the money, and some of my people could, but a lot of the kids just, you know, some kids are saving their money to pay for a sitting and go out to the park. I think it would be just a hardship for some of those people. And as I go out there now as a bird watcher, I see a lot of people feeding the ducks. And, you know, it's just a neat park, and I hope you guys can find another way to finance this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I do have a handicap slide. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Rosana Esparza, and I'm a resident of Kern County. I live in Bakersfield. I'm also a member of the Sierra Club, Kern Camellia Chapter. I appreciate that we're all going through these challenges of what it is to live in our community. But because I'm not a native to Kern County and I'm coming from Southern California, I always like to think that when I come to a new place, I look at it through a totally different perspective. And oftentimes I wonder, if you would leave Kern County and come back, what would you see? I see a community that is full of opportunity. I see a community that has so many resources that aren't necessarily tapped into.
You have a fabulous county here. You have desert, you have flowers, you have dry, arid places for you to go and hike, and you can be in the snow and you can be out in the heat. Take a look at it. My area specialization is intergenerational issues. This is an intergenerational issue, and it's going to impact not only young people, but middle-aged people and our seniors. When we start implementing a fee, we've heard what it does to people on fixed incomes. And it's not just one portion of the population that is suffering. Everyone here in this community has some challenge or another. I offer to support whatever decision is made. That's what we do. But I would also like to see that you look at your county with a different vision. Look at it through new eyes. Express yourselves and be wild and crazy about what this park could be. Why not have a trolley? Have a parking spot that's off-site. Run the trolley from downtown or wherever your parking is and take it down there, making stops along the way. Make this an opportunity to bring communities together. Make it an opportunity to stop wasting our precious resource and getting into cars and spending that money on gas. Do something wild and think outside the box. You have a fabulous county here, many opportunities. All these people are here willing to help. Please, don't walk away from your opportunity to show the residents of Kern County and other counties what Kern County is about and what can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Who will be next, please?
Hello, Shirley Skenfield, Skenfield, and I did sign the petition today, but I'm not part of the ad hoc group. These ideas that have been presented are absolutely wonderful, fantastic. I appreciate all the work that your county people have done at looking at the possibilities, how to take care of the problem. Last time we were here, I heard about Lost Hills Park as an example of putting out a bid to an outside agency to be able to take care of that park because of the distance from downtown county. And I thought to myself, I use that park. I stop there when I go over to the coast, and it's a beautiful place, well taken care of, beautiful situation. And I thought, okay, if you were to collect $150,000 a year in parking fees, and that's something you chose to do, how would that money actually be spent? And I thought, okay, does that mean more trash cans? Does that mean renovating the bathrooms? I know those are the two bigger issues, but how do you accomplish that? Does that mean you're going to hire more county employees and they are going to become part of the cost? And pretty soon you think, well, gosh, how many county employees could you hire for that amount? So how do you remedy the problem with that amount of money, and how are you actually going to distribute those funds if that's what you choose to collect? So I think all the ideas that people have come up with today seemed like maybe a broader way of looking at the problem, instead of just saying, oh, we're going to collect this amount of money, and then we've got this little group of people that are going to decide, well, this is how we're going to spend it. I don't know if that's the most efficient way. So I hope you will consider all those things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Dennis Fox. I have two items to talk about. First one, this is $5 is not a fee. It is a subsidy, de facto subsidy. The county is in dire straits. It might be time to think about the subsidies and how much are we going to continue giving tax forgiveness to people who don't need it. Second item, and the millions therein, had to do several years ago. The Sierra Club had a fellow named Randall O'Toole go to the library, and this has to do with the prescient statement last meeting of Supervisor Maggard. And what he proposed, this fellow and the Sierra Club was pushing for a fee to park in a forest, at which time the district ranger, Janine Derby, rose and said, you know, the less affluent people in this area, their only method of family recreation is they get those little $2 foam ice chests and they put Cokes in it and they go fishing out at the river up in the canyon. Well, they got their little fee, and you don't see the cars parked all over the place as you go up the canyon. And what is kind of going on is the Sierra Club is a lily white organization. They can afford to be so, and they can relish being seen as somewhat elitist and sometimes racist. The County of Kern can't. Thank you.
Who'll be next, please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Louis Hoyt, H-O-Y-T. Going back into the 60s and 70s, I grew up in Hart Park, and Hart Park paid for itself. We didn't have to pay for Hart Park. We had the concessions in there. We had all the amusement parks. We had everything going, and that family that had that contract paid our county a fee to be in that park and run that business in that park. And there's no reason why that park can't go back to that system again. We can put concessionaires back in that park. We can put boats back in that lake. We can do things other than charging people to drive through that park. Like everybody else, I use that park weekly. I used to cruise the park on Sunday afternoons. We can't cruise the park anymore, but that's life. But still, we used to cruise it on Sunday afternoons. It was bumper to bumper traffic. It took you an hour to go through Hart Park. So the county has totally disbanded that park. They have ignored it, and ignored it. It's deny until it's died. And Visalia has a park called Mooney's Grove. Mooney's Grove was just like Hart Park. They had their concessions in there, they had their boats in the lakes, and they took all of that out, and now they charge people to go in that park. Nobody goes in that park anymore because you have to pay to go in it. There's nothing to do in there. There's a museum in there, and it's a beautiful museum, but we don't even have a museum out here. So what we need to do is turn that park back into a business so it pays for itself, so the county doesn't have to pay for it. We don't have to come up with employees to clean the bathrooms and mow the grass. Let somebody else do that. When the city of Bakersfield buried their park pools, I went out and found a corporation that would pay the city of Bakersfield a fee, revamp their pools, and keep their pools open. But the councilman didn't want to hear it. They had to build this $5 million pool sitting over here losing money. And our parks no longer have pools in them. So with that being said, I think you can turn Hart Park into a business and make it work instead of charging the ordinary taxpayer people that go in there and use it. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm David Schad, S-C-H-A-A-D, and I'm a member of the Audubon Society and the Kern Native Plant Society. One thing that hasn't been mentioned here that was mentioned last time, and I think it's an interesting idea, somewhere in the United States it was mentioned, I think it was Delaware, whatever, that they have a policy in their parks, pack it in, you pack it out. Well, my family are avid hikers and campers. we pack it in and we pack it out. And I think Sierra Club people would recognize that that's a general policy for the thousands of people that use the mountains and so on like that. I think people who use the park are not uneducatable. They can be, maybe use the word trained, I don't know, that's kind of a derogatory term maybe, to pack it in and pack it out. And we wouldn't need garbage cans, trash cans, we wouldn't need trash pickup or whatever, and it would make our park look very beautiful and solve a big problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mona Sidhu, that's spelled S-I-D-H-U. I have a couple of quick points to make. I have two relatives who work in the Lamont Elementary School District, and my sister tells me that every Monday when the kids are asked what they did over the weekend, the overwhelming majority of them, for the last several years that she's worked there, have been to Hart Park on the weekend with their families. I understand that the proposal for a $5 fee and then a $50 yearly fee seems on the face reasonable, but for some people, coming up with that $50 in one lump sum is not going to be possible, so it's going to operate as a regressive tax where people will either have to pay the $5, and if they go there more than 10 times a year, which many of them do, they will actually, the lower economic strata will actually end up paying more for the use of the park than those who can afford to pay the $50 up front. So that's something to consider. The other point I want to make is I'm an immigrant. We moved to Bakersfield in 1976, and on two separate occasions I've taken 6 weeks and 5 weeks in 1993 and 2009 to drive across country and back to explore my new home. And one of the things I've done on my cross-country trips to save money is I stop at county parks, which are free in many parts of the country, to stop and have my lunch. And, you know, that's part of America as far as I see it, is free access to parks to everybody.
Please come forward.
Hello, I'm Ruben Rosales. Was born and raised in Bakersfield, so I'm familiar with Hart Park. The thing that I want to say is that last 3-4 years I spent time at Hart Park, not the park itself, but the river, which is very important because people will use the river, and that's where the trash ends up at. So when we first started cleaning litter, I got 4 or 5 guys that helped me. It would take, to do the whole park, we'd have to do it in sections, a quarter at a time. But then what I started doing was putting trash cans up there, chained them up, locked them, and they will use them. If they're there, they'll use them, but the county doesn't have trash cans along the river. So that's what we do. We go spend every Tuesday at the park, and we clean it. So I was just hoping that if they create this incentive about the fee, that they don't nail us for having to go pick up trash. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My name is Darren Nilsson. I represent the commerce side of this discussion. I own Rivers End Rafting and Adventure Company. We've been in Bakersfield for the last 12 years. We are Bakersfield's whitewater rafting company, which most people don't even know we have one. We are opposed to the $5 fee and very much in favor of commerce coming back to the park. 2006, I applied for the lease and concession agreement, which was held by James P. Willems at that time. I did not get it. I was told that it was offered to somebody else, and yet we have seen no vendor occupy that space in the last 11 years. I think that's a waste of time. We missed a really good opportunity there, and so I would like to submit today to the board a letter of intent, a good proposal, and lots of ideas of what we could do as a company to come in and refurbish the park and rejuvenate it. And instead of charging people for parking, let them open their wallets and spend money on things that they want to spend money on, and then we can turn around and give that money back to the park. So I'd like to submit this to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. Do we have any other speakers, please? Okay. All right. How many more do we have? If you could raise your hand if you'd like to speak? Two, okay. Two more, great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg McGiffney. I'm in the Parks Commission. I'm the Vice Chairman. It's good to see everybody here talking about Hart Park. Growing up on the East Coast, my first job was $2 an hour working for the local Parks Department, and I conducted routine maintenance for my community. And that job taught me that being good stewards of public resources through providing parks is a fundamental and worthwhile function of our government. And I've lived here since 1995 and been on the commission since 2011. But throughout that time, the number one concern that brought before the commission related to the issues of Hart Park. We've had discussions about this for at least 6 years. So beginning in 2015, the commission, we were in a thorough study of what can be done to improve the park with over a dozen meetings devoted to this topic, and in particular, trying to go through a solution which we've talked about many times and rehashed it many times. I won't go through that. The park is old and in poor condition, and we need some working capital. But I will mention that in other parks, people mention, why can't we do X, Y, and Z? Well, like with Lost Hills and Lamont urban areas, there's ways to get grants, and there's companies that were interested in doing things there. And Hart Park happens to be in the Metro Bakersfield. So there's a legal reason why we can't necessarily just outsource or go into Hart Park and just do things like we might in other places. It just can't happen. We'd like to get grants, but a lot of those have matching fund requirements, so someone has to raise funds to do that. So, you know, to be perfectly clear, our requirements at the park have been mitigated somewhat over the years by volunteers and other resources that have helped us improve parks in other areas, local parks in many other communities. Now, there's many volunteers and GSAs, gratuitous service agreements, and organizations, but these don't supplant the maintenance and operation requirements. The average cost of upkeep, Hart Park, as we mentioned before, is about $2,000 a day. We probably need $300,000 to $500,000 maybe to keep the facilities to current state of condition, and quite possibly even more. So we were thinking, or at least looking at the numbers, it probably takes about $2,500 a day at a minimum going forward to properly maintain the facilities to get it to a level where we can go forward with other things. Now, the county's budget's being cut, and I looked at the budget. Revenues are dramatically falling. The parks budget has been a constant downward glide slope since 2009. Now, only one of the current members of the board's been here since 2009, so I'll review this quickly. Between 2009 and 2016, total county expenditures have increased by 86%. Tax revenue increased by 53%. However, the total expenditures of current parks and rec decreased by 12%. Now, Parks and Rec has been aggressive in improving the quality of park infrastructure through outsourcing where possible and ability to obtain other sources of funding where grant rules and such allow us to do so. And then with the absorption of Parks and Rec Department now into General Services, no longer exists, Parks and Rec Department, the county's looking at further efficiencies, which is a great idea. Now, I know we also have an exacerbation of about $100 million being lost to the tax base, and the root cause is having a negative impact to the entire local economy. It's not just people with fixed income are affected, people who have jobs and have work and have businesses that supply the oil companies. Their actual incomes have gone down. Now, I know that departments are being asked to make further cuts. They've been pretty aggressive about it. I've heard that in the news. Some departments are having difficulty contemplating such cuts and have difficulty determining how to deliver services more efficiently. But regardless of the department involved, it's clear that budget cuts have consequences, and this is why we're here today. Now, there's been many ideas that have been floated, and some are reasonable, some are doable, and some have not been. You know, the whole thing with the concessionaires has been an ongoing issue. I guess there's a legal issue involved, and that's been a thorn in our side, I'm pretty sure. I know we've talked about a design charrette various times, but we need that for future improvements, and again with the master plan. And right now we're talking about baseline maintenance for our parks. Now, we went through all the remedies, and there are remedies. One of which is, of course, we could just allocate more funding and bring the park up to standard. We could also raise fees or fundraise. There's a lot of ways to go about this. The oil companies, however, have not been a part of the solution because of their loss of revenue, because their tax bases have gone down, and that's kind of a sore point with many as well. Now, public facilities are affordable, like Hart Park, are affordable destination locations. People from all walks of life come together, enjoy the natural beauty of our county, and recreate. In contrast to other places where we see riots when people assemble, having a great park where people can peaceably congregate is far preferable. Hart Park's been called a gem by many, but to truly appreciate any gem, it must be occasionally polished and checked for integrity. Such it is with Hart Park. It must be maintained properly or it will cease to be a gem. Now, it's been the recommendation of your commission that we take prompt action to prevent the further degradation of Hart Park. The best recommendation we come up with was a parking fee after many, many meetings, and a lot of people say there's been no outreach, but I guarantee there has been, and we've looked at a lot of different options. This option was chosen because of its, for a lot of reasons, because it's the ability to place kiosks in and not to increase staffing as well. It's done very much in line with what's done at the universities, actually. But like I said, we've looked at many options, rehashed many options, and we want more input. But we must remember that ideas without plans are merely dreams that are lost in the night. To the members of this ad hoc committee, thank you for participating, but just I wonder where you've been all along. Maybe it's just taken that impetus from saying we need to do something to the park and raise fees that you've come out, and I appreciate that. I think the commission appreciates that. But we would have liked to have you all along, quite frankly. Now, the assumption that ideas that have been mentioned have not been considered is wrong. While it's disappointing with the limitations of funding, along with other issues, everything's gotten us to this point. And I know there's been a lot of concern about fees, and I hear everybody's statements, and we've considered those things. And quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of that either necessarily. But, you know, we've got emerging concern now with everybody because a fee's been mentioned, and it's taken maybe that impetus to get the word out that Hart Park's in trouble. But if this is what it takes to galvanize these actions to preserve the park for future generations, then this is a real positive, in my opinion. Like I said, the fee decision was a focused decision based on a lot of possible paths. But again, all decisions, ideas need working capital. There has to be a way, but to do all the things we're talking about, we're going to need some either seed money or working capital to do that. And we need to find a way there. Right now, there is no way as far as we know. So we need to sit down and if we need to sit down and figure that out, I'd be in favor of that. But again, we need some more guidance in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGiffney, and appreciate you continuing to stay engaged on this issue and all your work on the commission. All right, we have one more speaker, is that correct? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Neil Sanapa. I'm a resident of District 3.
Would you spell your last name, please?
Sannappa.
Thank you.
I'm also here as a representative of the Young Progressive Coalition. I disagree with the idea of a parking fee within Hart Park just because I know that it's going to affect, as you've heard from so many constituents today, the elderly, middle-aged people and younger people like myself. And I really don't think people are going to use the park if there is a $5 fee to get into it. People will park other places to use the hiking areas, and people will try and get around that. And I also feel like collecting that fee itself will probably divert any funds that are coming in general. So I am asking all of you, please listen to your constituents that came here today, and please vote no on implementing a parking fee. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the portion of the meeting for public input. And so I know that my fellow board members are going to have comments, but I did want to ask Mr. Frapwell and Mr. Haney if they could address some of the questions and perhaps comments that have been made to the extent that you're able to at this time. The ones that I wrote down, one question was how are the trash bins allocated, a restroom and restroom restoration repair, is there a countywide plan? Another in regards to the cost for installation of the kiosks and no parking signs. What's the criteria for determining volunteers if they were not required to pay the fee? What's the plan for enforcement of the parking fee? Am I going too fast for you, Mr. Frappo? You got it?
Good.
Okay. And there was a question about development impact fees. Of course, we addressed that at the last meeting, but if you could explain that we don't have a development impact fee that can go to Hart Park. Okay, that's all the ones I had. Perhaps my colleagues have some others, but let's start with those, and then we'll go to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are a lot of great ideas, and I appreciate the public input today on, and appreciate the passion that folks have for this important asset that we have in Kern County. Let me just kind of go through your list. I have some other kind of notes on my 3 pages of kind of notes that I took from folks' people's comments. With respect to trash, I'll let Mr. Haney handle that in a moment, but the restroom plan, let me go back. In 2010, as was mentioned by many speakers, the county did develop a master plan for the park system as a whole. And just, some of the interesting excerpts out of that plan were great to read. The plan, though, highlighted at one point that there were $38 million needed to rehab community parks and $193 million to rehab existing regional parks, including $65 million just for the Kern Regional Park there along Kern River. So clearly there is a need for investment in our county park facilities. And potential Hart Park projects, as highlighted in the 2010 report, was tot lot rehabilitation, restroom replacements, ADA access, transit, domestic water line, irrigation upgrades, split rail fence rehab, equestrian trails, and the list goes quite on. So clearly there's the need for that. And so the question specifically was, is there a restroom plan? And the department does maintain and manage, the Parks Recreation Department, before it was merged General Services, maintained a prioritization of needs system-wide. And I can assure you that these restrooms have been on their priority list and need to be addressed. Those needs for capital improvements in the parks obviously compete against all the other needs we have within the county. And there are 3.8 million square feet of county facilities that your board is also charged to being stewards of. And so there simply is a factor of more demand than resources to address them.
Mr. Frappo, just give us an idea. Do you know ballpark, what's the deferred maintenance for right now? What's our total amount of deferred maintenance for the county? Because we're having to provide resources just to keep operations going in many general fund departments, and maintenance and capital projects are being deferred because of it. So
Okay.
Can you give us a ballpark?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, not counting the backlog in roads maintenance as far as infrastructure goes, you're well over $400 million in backlog deferred needs.
Thank you.
So the restroom plan, as far as was brought up by one of the speakers, those needs and the pictures, I think, speak way louder than any words I could speak about the need to address the failing infrastructure at the park. Are certainly they've been on a higher priority for the Parks Department. With respect to the cost to implement the parking fee, if your board were to approve that, there are 2 components of that. There's about a $30,000 one-time cost to purchase and install the parking ticket vending machines, as well as signage interior to the park to drive people to understand where those parking meters are, or those dispensers are. In addition to that, there's about $8,000 of cost to be outside the park limits to do no parking along both sides of Alfred Harrell Highway. So that's about $38,000 one-time cost in order to do that. The maintenance cost and the ongoing staffing costs would be absorbed within the department with existing staffing. Clearly, that is not enough staff to make sure that every vehicle that's parked has a citation, but it is much like any kind of law enforcement agency. Their presence is there to ensure that people are encouraged to purchase that ticket, purchase that parking fee. The department has had and maintains an active volunteer program. They, as Mr. McGiffney mentioned, we have gratuitous service agreements in which volunteers or groups that make improvements and provide a public service to the Parks Department and in maintenance of the facilities will get, for instance, a one-day pass to the park. Lots of examples of this, but the scouting organizations make a tremendous impact and contribution to our park facilities. For instance, if they're doing a Eagle Scout project at Buena Vista, their troop will be afforded free camping for that night while they're doing that project. So where you have benefit, and there's a process in place, where you have benefit that's being received by the park, there is a waiver of fees. So I would imagine in this instance, that criteria would be applied to volunteers that do projects within Hart Park. The development impact fee, we do not have a countywide development impact fee. There is, however, the Quimby fee. And Quimby fund is established on new development. It is available for parks within the zone of improvement of those developments. So in other words, if a housing development goes in, there's a Quimby fee collected. Those fees are available for neighborhood parks, or they're also available for regional parks. So this certainly qualifies as a regional park. There has to be a nexus between where that fee is collected, the development happens, and the park in which it's used. So that exists. Those funds are very limited and significantly underfunds any kind of needs that our parks have. Let's see. Other notes here. There was a question about what the department spends $750,000 on in order to maintain the park. That covers the staffing, equipment, and operational costs of Hart Park. And let's see, cover the cost of installation. There was a question raised about how the money would be allocated. If it was to be collected, how does that money get allocated? What is the transparency with respect to that? The use of those funds, or the proposed use of those funds, would be incorporated in your budget hearings, your public budget hearings before your board each year, and the use of those funds would be highlighted for what purpose, and that would be considered during budget hearings. There was a question about concessionaires, and I certainly welcome and would be happy to entertain concessionaires at the park. We've had mixed success there over the last 30 years that I've been here in the county. And if we can find a concessionaire who has a proposal that is economically viable to them, I am certainly all ears to hear that. So I welcome seeing Mr. Nelson's proposal. There are a lot of great ideas as I'm looking down here, and I think that's all my prepared comments.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Frapwell. Appreciate it. Okay, I will now go to the board. Ask if who'd like to start.
Okay, I will.
Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very interesting day. Thank you very much. A lot of valid comments. I appreciate them all. I took down a bunch of notes myself. I'd just like to start off with you, Mr. Nations. I know you're not ready for this, but let me start off with you anyway. We heard some people talk about legal issues with the plan, that we've done things, it's city limits, jurisdiction. Are there legal issues with privatizing services or outsourcing services, rather, maintenance services, for example, with our county parks?
Yes,
Could you, without taking too much time, outline those?
Government Code 31,000 provides that you can outsource services of public agencies under very specific criteria. And with respect to park maintenance services, there has to be a finding that the park being serviced is remote. And I don't think at this point Hart Park qualifies for that designation.
So we can't outsource at Hart Park, but we might be able to outsource at other parks.
Yes, in fact, I think we're currently doing that at a park in Lost Hills.
Right. So, okay.
Can I ask a question for clarification? clarification on that. I want some clarification on that. That definition, we define, right?
It's my understanding that's correct.
So if that definition was modified, then Hart Park could qualify.
Well, yes, the definition has to be reasonable.
Oh, I'm reasonable.
I know. I know you
Okay,
are.
thank you.
Okay, that's interesting, that word reasonable. I appreciate that. But, you know, if it depends upon, you know, your perspective, what is reasonable is what's your perspective. And if you're sitting in downtown New York City, then I guess you could say that you know, there's a different perspective than you living in Bakersfield and you got to travel from downtown Bakersfield to Hart Park and it's going to take you a 20-minute drive. You know, that's a completely different type of reasonable approach to how we go about it. So interesting you say that, and I think that deserves some thought. Mr. Lane, several other Mr. Rosales, I think it was Mr. may have been Mrs. Rosales, Mr. Rosales, talked about Mr. Rosales talked about cleaning, and they talked about trash bins. Can we talk about trash bins and where we are with trash bins?
Supervisor Gleason, to the chair, is the question about trash bins. Typically, there's a set amount of trash bins within the park. That includes Lake Ming, that includes the campgrounds. Typically, they'll be moved around to heavier use areas. So while you might see them in one location during a certain event, they could be moved to another part of the park during another event. Lake Ming, for example, if there's a wedding being held, they may be concentrated in one area versus where Hart Park, if you're not near a picnic table, they may be placed closer to the other group picnic area. The large bins are typically placed along the roadside because that's where the trash service can pick them up. Smaller cans placed throughout the park would require to be emptied by staff into those larger bins into a vehicle to be hauled off otherwise. But the bins within the Hart Park specifically are placed where they are depending on the need.
Thank you. I'm sitting back, I've listened to them, I would like to hear from my colleagues on what they think and how they would like to approach this solution.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason. Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate Supervisor Gleason for your interest in this and your comments at the outset, because I know you're open to the prospects of what we might be able to do. I want to thank, first of all the members of the public who came today to talk. One of the wonderful things about where we live is that our community is engaged, they are passionate, and they step forward when something is important to them. And I was a bit taken aback by where were you all along when we had this process? Well, as soon as you became aware of it, you engaged, and I'm grateful that you did, and thank you for being here today to do that. There are a number of things I just want to touch on, and then I have a recommendation I'd like to make. One of the things to touch on has to do with the garbage cans. I naively thought that I would call the private trash hauling vendor that picks up those cans and say, hey, we have an arrangement with you, can you just give us more bins? I discovered in my discussion with a representative of the trash haulers that the county owns all those trash bins, and the county owns all the trash bins in all of our county parks because we have an arrangement with them that gives us a discounted rate in exchange for which we supply the bins. At one point, there was a significant inventory of extra bins that were to replace the ones that were out. I don't know if we still have those. We don't have to chase that today, but one of the solutions is for us to find a way to put more bins and concentrate them in the park. I'm not going to go on about this, but I'm in there in the park. I'm along that corridor all the way from the boys camp barbecue area all the way down through the park regularly. And it is more often than not that those cans are not concentrated in the park. So I think that will help some with the trash issue. One of the most common solutions that is suggested to me as I have engaged in our community talking about this is inmate labor and the use of day reporters and others who can go out there and that we can utilize. Because one of the issues I think that is of significance that we should consider is how we go about operating the park more efficiently and more effectively using taxpayer dollars. And one of those has to do with the inmate labor. Another has to do with utilizing the potential privatization, outsourcing of those that do that maintenance in the park. So I think that's one of the things, many things that I think we should throw to this effort to develop a visioning document for it. There's a question that we don't need to resolve this today, but I'm going to make sure that our notes reflect it. Mr. Lane asked specifically for what is the budget that is specified for Hart Park. You mentioned before that was about $750,000. What's the line item of where that $750,000 goes? Because there are those in the community that want to scrutinize that and trying to figure out how to use those dollars more effectively. So it's just one of the areas that the public will want to engage on. The standard way that government, in my observation over the years, operates is that when there's a problem, they often assess a fee and expect that to take care of the problem. I am a business person that is, for a time in my life, working in government trying to fix some things in my hometown. I'm not done yet, but I've done this for a while, and I'm going to do it for a while longer. But the issue that I have observed is that being a businessman is we don't often take the opportunities that exist. I want to stop for a moment and thank Mr. Nielsen for coming forward. The prospect of having private enterprise come into the park and polish this gem, to borrow someone's words that said that earlier, into something that is a magnet for people to come to will allow us to let people pay for services that they want, not pay a mandatory fee to park there, pay for services that they want, and we will participate, we being the county, will participate in the opportunity for private enterprise to create jobs and generate an amenity that's better for all of us. That's the model I hope that we would follow. There are several opportunities for that. One is the idea that Mr. Nielsen has about taking over, applying for the concession for the park. A concession for the park, Hart Park, and for Lake Ming was offered a few years ago. I was engaged in that process. I'm aware that the concession was granted to a business interest in our community. Something happened inside that entity, and they weren't able to complete their engagement in taking over the concession at the park. It just fell to rest and did not go forward. We have a prime opportunity to make it go forward now. And what Mr. Nielsen is suggesting, I'd like us to explore as one of the solutions, because we, the people that own that park, can participate in the profits that a competent business can generate for us. So that's a wonderful opportunity. Another opportunity that is there is I've been contacted by someone who wants to do a water park. A long, long time ago, there was a water park in Hart Park. Someone wants to do a water park again in Hart Park, as well as the concession for the boats and all of that. Another idea that has been suggested that I think has real potential is that on those big weekends, there are times when food trucks could go to the park and have a built-in market at which to sell lots and lots of their product. And there's nothing wrong with those vendors paying a fee to the county for the privilege of using the staging area of the park as to how they're going to make their money. So we can partner with them in doing that. Another idea that is worth mentioning today is the prospect of having private enterprise sponsor and participate in the park. The wonderful company in Lost Hills has done a marvelous, incredible job of doing many, many things for Lost Hills. Everything from the classes in which the kids go to school, to street improvements, to housing plans, but also to that park in Lost Hills. If you've never been in that park, it is remarkable what it was and what it is today, largely due to the commitment that the wonderful company has to their employees and a passion they have to make life better for the people that work for them. I would like to see, as part of our visioning and part of our strategic plan, to see if there are opportunities to engage employers in our community whose employees use that park to engage with us and be in helping to sponsor aspects of that park. And that could be as well all up and down that corridor, because frankly, not only do tens of thousands of people that work for some of those companies go to the Hart Park every year, many, many thousands of them also, their children go to the soccer park, and the soccer park is struggling as well. So a vision for the whole corridor is a good idea. I was really heartened by Supervisor Gleason's idea about having revitalizing this strategic plan we have for all of our county parks. One last thing about the funding issue. There are, I've heard it said that there are no grants available for parks. I, in firsthand experience, can tell you that's not accurate. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars at Pioneer Park, which is in the 3rd District, the park in which I grew up playing, which is just north of, between Nile Street and Edison Highway in East Bakersfield. We have spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in that park because we've received grants. We have received some special money that allowed us to put in a spray park and new toys and lights and a walking path and many, many amenities. The same thing we're in the process of doing at Potomac Park, which is a new park. It's an old park, but it's new to the 3rd District when we moved our lines a few years ago. Another park in which I played with my cousins when I was growing up. It happens to be that I've always lived in the 3rd District for my entire life, so these things are things I know about intimately. There is money there, and if we make it a priority to apply those dollars to the regional gem that GEM that Hart Park is for all of us, we can find ways to find money for that. So with all that said, I would hope that our board today would not implement the $5 fee today, that we would pause, put that on hold, thank the Park Commission for taking on a tough challenge as to what we might do about Hart Park, but to put that on hold for today and allow a process. I don't mean a process that takes a year. I mean a process that within a couple of 2 or 3 months, we have come back with lots of public engagement and a plan. What do we want Hart Park to be, and what do we want all of our parks to be? And I don't know what the strategy will be. Will it include a parking fee or not? I do not know. But I do know that there are so many good ideas that have been suggested so far, and there will be others that will come from this process, that we would benefit from pausing and initiating a process like that, particularly for Hart Park, but for other parks in our district as well. So I'll speak to other aspects of it if momentum develops for assessing the fee as of today. But if that idea does not go forward today, I won't take the time of the board and the public to go over a bunch more points about that. But just to reiterate one more time, I hope we pause on the fee, do not implement it today, and that we refer to staff a process that will engage the resources of the county and invite the public's input into a way to update and revitalize the strategic plan that we had back in 2010 that would include Hart Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Gleason?
I'd like to swap places with Supervisor Perez for a quick second.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. Well, Supervisor Maggard, I also grew up at Pioneer Park as a kid. And so when it was moved out of the 5th District and into your district, that's been a point of contention for me. So I'm not going to hold that against you today.
I bet you didn't play in the park at the same time I played in the park.
You know, I'll tell you, it has improved a lot since I was there. A lot of housing development around there too, which I think, is directly linked to those park improvements. So nonetheless, we'll leave that fight for another time, Supervisor. And I say that, really reiterate your points. I think it's been very nicely said. Really appreciate Supervisor Gleason's leadership on looking at all of our parks and thinking about how we can really think creatively and collaboratively about improving that family healthy space and make it even more enticing for the community and family to be within. So I don't have anything more to add, just to say I would agree with Supervisor Maggard's position. If it is, that is a motion, I would second it. Otherwise, I would defer to our fearless leader, Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you, Supervisor Perez. I grew up at Fenway Park. A little bit different than Hart Park, but not quite as nice. Not quite as nice. In a lot of ways. I got three things to say. First is I want to thank the Parks Commission for all the work they've done in the past year in trying to grapple with this issue and to come up with a solution. It's not lost on this board, the value you bring to the conversation and what you've done to support us and getting this thing going, and the fact that we now have this public momentum. My goal is to not lose it, is to capitalize on the momentum to see if there's things we can do to help shape something that we all want. So that's first and foremost. Thanks to the Parks Commission. Thank you, sir. Second thing, I'm not gonna vote to lose Hart Park. So if it comes down to a parking fee, then my vote will be to assess a parking fee, because regardless of the passion that's involved here, if it doesn't materialize in a plan, an actionable plan that can achieve things that we want to achieve, we need to create revenue streams. I'm not willing to divert money from our public safety or other critical funds to support a hot park. I'm just not willing to do it. If it comes down to it, I'd rather have a firefighter on the street or a police deputy on the street than have trash pick or some fund to pick up the park. So I understand the financial strait we're in. I'm willing to give this a run, but the threat, the sword of Damocles that's hanging over all of us is the fact that I think this board would join me also, I don't know, but I think they would join me in if we get to that point where we have to assess a parking fee, that's a viable alternative to create a revenue stream. Unfortunately, there's other more viable alternatives that have been presented for us today. So what I would like to do is offer a 3-month, Mr. Alsop, tell me what you think about some type of period to develop some type of key collaborative effort with some defined, specific objectives that are achievable to develop a plan and strategy for all our parks, which would include the Hot Park. Mr. Alsop, what do you think about that?
I think that's a good idea, and we'll work on it. I don't know if I don't know what kind of time frame there needs to be, but you know, that could be, you know, we're going to want to have some of the community's input certainly on that. And I know that there's been a 2010, apparently there's a 2010 master plan, so we'll need to look at that. But we can start work on that right away and try to get back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Frapwell, would you piggyback on that?
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, I think 3 months is, if we could accomplish the whole thing in 3 months, that would be aggressive. That's a worthy goal, however, and I do think we can actively engage in this. That's the kind of the royal we. And
you won't see it through to the end?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I don't know that I will defer retirement until after that, but I will suggest and make a commitment of my staff that we will actively engage in a public process to seek the public input and to develop actionable. I appreciate your admonition that the plan that comes forward must be actionable.
Thank you, Mr. Frapwell. My motion is going to be to, let's get back to this in 3 months. Let's revisit this issue in 3 months, find out what that actionable plan is, make some determinations at that time whether we need to continue on, discover, see if there's a plan of action that we can develop, or whether we need to assess a parking fee for Hot Park. So my recommendation is to kick this for 3 months.
Okay, so would that be a motion to continue this item for staff to come back, or is this a motion to direct, we're directing General Services to come up with a plan to engage the public, or I guess ultimately it's the CAO's office to develop a plan? Is that where?
Yes.
What your motion is? Okay.
Mr. Alsop, would you care to comment on my motion? Is that correct? I mean, we're not continuing. What we're doing is developing and design. We'd like to give some time to develop and design a strategic plan to determine what we can do with our parks and have a 3-month review. In 3 months, review our progress with that plan.
I like that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Gleason, I think that's good. A report back on the status of where we stand in 3 months.
Thank you, sir. That's my motion.
I have got a couple of thoughts I'd like to add. It was interesting because this didn't occur to me, I don't think, the last time that we had this, we were hearing this subject, but about a year ago, when I say we, the Parks, it was at the time the Parks and Recs Department, also Mr. Frapwell and General Services, we started a process with another regional park jewel in the county, which is Tehachapi Mountain Park. I had heard concerns from my constituents about the deteriorating facilities that were there, the need to do something, but we were no different than now, facing a situation of diminishing resources and probably not any real prospects of being able to put more cash into the park, although we did do a few capital projects. We were able to go in and update the electrical backbone of the park. But We had public workshops. We had great participation. We did a foot tour of the park, and what that did was it started some momentum with corporate partners and even some discussions about some potential vendor contracts that would provide different amenities and concessions, et cetera. So it certainly is possible, and the passion is clearly been demonstrated by the community. And so I don't think 3 months is too aggressive for us to get a game plan together at the very least of what we would like to accomplish. And that's why I think it's important that this is something we're looking at for all parks, because we have some regional parks that are in great need for attention along with our local neighborhood parks as well. But part of that discussion, I really want to be an analysis of our ability to contract out for maintenance. And this isn't an effort to fire a bunch of county employees that are our park maintenance folks, because through attrition alone, I'm sure that in the course of a few years, we wouldn't have a situation where we'd be needing to eliminate county employees for non-county employees, but rather attrition, I think, would allow for that transition to occur without any disruption to anyone's employment. As Mr. Nations and I were discussing a little bit here, we can determine what, as long as it's reasonable, I think was the word that he used, we can determine what is a remote park and what isn't. In my view, Hart Park should fit that definition, but that's something that we're going to have to explore with legal staff, obviously, and county staff. So I'm all for it. I'm all for engaging the public. I appreciate everybody's passion that are here. Thank you for all your comments. I don't want the Parks Commission to be in any way excluded from this process. I know that's no one's intention, but the 18 months that they went through in developing this recommendation, they have heard a lot of these ideas, and there's been a lot of discussion of it. And so I would hope that we can make sure that the structure of this is going to include them as an integral role. They do a thankless job. They're appointed. Each of them are appointed by the 5 of us. And so I want to make sure that they're continuing to be appreciated, and that their expertise and their interest that they've demonstrated for a long, long time in our park system is utilized. So we have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion? Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would thank Supervisor Gleason for his motion and his leadership on this, and I will heartily second the motion. I'd like to ask Mr. Alsop to, there are 2 dilemmas I see that we face as we move forward. One is, what is the forum in which we conduct this visioning process? A charrette was mentioned. The Parks Commission already exists. I don't know what that is, but I'd like you to give us some recommendation in the very near term as to what you think might be a way for us to navigate through that. And secondly, many people are engaged here today. How do we get word to them that the process will be thus, and they know how to engage in it, so that they are not, they don't miss the opportunity? There is a list here, but I suspect that list is not comprehensive. What strikes me that maybe someone amongst those there's about 50 people in the room today that came regarding this issue. Could someone help gather those names and some contact information, and we can make sure that they're engaged, and there will be others that will participate as soon as the public watches this. But Mr. Alsop, can you come back to us with what your suggestion is, and then we might modify that a bit, but what your suggestion is on how we proceed with gathering this input and reach this conclusion?
Chairman Scrivener, Supervisor Maggard, I will come back to you as soon as possible with that, and I will start with this list. I think this list is a good start to build on, and I think these folks can hook me up with others.
Okay.
So,
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Supervisor Gleason.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Okay, please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Okay. Once again, thank you, all of you, for being here. Really appreciate it. We will see you again. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of our business, and so I will, before I lose the board here, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to Monday, February 13th, 9 a.m. for a special board meeting.
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned.